Welcome to the show, everyone. I hope you're all well. Hope you're great. And for the first time, I'm looking at the chat, the behind the scenes, and it seems like it's quite quiet for a change, which is amazing. So I can greet you all and get right into the show. MD Global, Ryan, Curtis, have a great trip. I see you flying to Hong Kong this evening. John, Chow, welcome. Chi-Town, Maina, Ashley, welcome all of you. Thank you for joining. Welcome to the show. Wrist Shot Week, for those of you who are new, is simply a time when we get to sit back and enjoy the watches that everyone submits. And instead of being advertised to about what is popular, we get to just have fun and see what everyone else has. So I hope you're all well, and I hope you're all safe, keeping yourselves busy at this time. It's pretty difficult, but we all have to do something. Robert, Demetrius, welcome. Neville, Sebra, Dr. Els Gamer, welcome. Oh, it's great. Peter, Chili Prepper, great to see you all here. Thank you. So we're going to get right into this because there are so many submissions, and I was quite diligent this time around. I saved many and more. So look on the left-hand side of the screen. You'll see the selection of pieces that will be coming up. Some are multiples. There are a few duplicates, but they're just great. The variety is superb, as we can expect. At this point, we get to see so much difference from modern to vintage, horology, entry level, the whole deal. So everyone who's joined, thank you. Saying hi to a few more of you. Bruno, Mr. No Date, T. Taylor, Hans, Matthew from New Zealand is always great. Brummy, welcome. Yeah, superb. Okay, so we are going to begin. It's funny, getting back into the presenter style of things. You know, I didn't do a show last weekend. Felt a little bit flat, but decided, let's sit down and do it this time around. And in that off time, I've been preparing new videos for next week. So it's going to be great. I think you're going to enjoy next week's video a lot. It was so much fun to put together. We can get into that in more detail later on. And all of you who are joining now, thank you. Paul from Ireland, Freddie, Maynard, Mason, welcome. Shazbot, Logan. So good to have you all here. Thank you. Okay, let's get in. So the first piece, this is submitted by Anthony, and it became the cover photo for the show because it's there, it has it all. And if anyone is interested in how I basically choose the cover photo watch for the show, it basically needs to fit this kind of format. It needs to be a good enough amount of sleeve or skin possibly, and the watch to be right up and center. So it's easy for me to just crop it in, put the live text on the left-hand side, and there it is. It's so nice. And what I also enjoyed was the grass in the background. We got a bit of olive drab there. We get to see it. Seldomly do we see this watch off anything other than, its generic NATO strap or its bracelet. So it's nice seeing a bit of a canvas. I mean, it's a really nice, high-quality textured strap. Looks superb. So yeah, that's it. That's how we start. And yours truly is wearing, obviously, the little Seamaster. I try and save the wearing time with this piece for the weekends. And I think I've had it for about 3 months at this point. Still absolutely adore it. So I'm going to get to you in the comments. I see the comments going a bit wild. Looks like a Coke, Bowser says. Sure does. That's another detail I should have mentioned. The bezel is so dark on these models. It's so difficult. I mean, the only way you can really tell it's blue is this off light. But even then, it's one of the details that I think many address with this model especially, is that the bezel looks very black. But the red also really punches. It doesn't look like a maroon. It really does stand out nice and proud. Okay, getting to you in the chats. Let's see how many more are joining. Thomas Burnett, great having you here. Chrono Craze, Work Break. Oh, geez. All of you who are joining, I can't thank you enough. This is a time when we all get to sit back and enjoy ourselves. Of course, being a Saturday, if you are on that side of the world where it is still Saturday, allows you to have a bit of time off and just get into. There's so many pieces up. I think you're going to like the variety that's up this time around. Rob Ward, Neil, Mr. C, great having you here. Okay. And if you'd like to get a hold of me in the chat, tag me at @idguy. I'll be able to see it a lot easier. And if you have any questions, just roll it and keep going. And I hope to get to you as much as possible. The idea is that we can sit on a watch and then I can get back to the chats and catch up with all of you here. So, Tudor Pepsi is too thick, Alex says. That was one of the reasons why it didn't fall into my list, by the way. When I decided on choosing a watch in the end, the watch it's like what, between 14 and 15? No, it's not that thick, surely. It's like 13 mils thick at least, the case. And I'm someone who really enjoys something that's low and flat in profile. And yeah, this was taken yesterday. The UK has had some really good weather on the south coast, and the day I take the watch out with a phone is a day when there's just no sun at all, cloudy, moody atmosphere, you know. But this piece, I really think, is a special one, and I've spoken about it so much. But come next week, the video is oriented around this watch and many others like it, talking about reissue dive watches. And we really get into the nitty-gritty, and I go through a whole range of pieces. A lot of fun to put together. Really enjoyed it. It was a monster to address. Okay, we're going to get into this. So this first watch is from Amur, and it is a standard two-tone date just. Really like the setting. It's good to start with a simple piece. And all of you who are joining already, thank you. Karasis, Lee, Blue Shirt, welcome. Who else? Let's see, Dear Artifact, great to have you here. Yeah, you're very late, Karasis, by about 5 minutes. Yeah, I'm gonna have to keep the momentum up for the show because there are a lot of watches to go through and so much variety. I definitely don't want to sit on a few, and yeah. So as it is, it's good to keep track of time. So we'll try our best. Chris, welcome. So yeah, simple date just. I think this is a 36, and the two-tone date just is something special, especially with the champagne dial. And the plan is in the next few weeks, I'm still working on a write-up about the ideal jade dust. That's a good way to start the show. The standard date just, and just address where it sits. It was a very good question sent to me. I can't remember who emailed me, but asked me a question, something like, is the date just obsolete nowadays when we consider everything going on in the watch space and where this watch really sits in that hemisphere? And I thought that's such an interesting question. Let's try and address it in a way, but also look at the rights and the wrongs of the date just. What makes it so ideal? What elements work well together? What don't so much? So it should be a nice discussion. That'll be on the cards in the future. And Ron, welcome. Yeah, the Zin video. There's a couple of Zins. Thanks to all of you who did send in Zin watches. Yeah, I can't believe how good that brand is. When you actually see what is offered, apart from what everyone loves to wear, it's mind-blowing. So yeah, I hope to do more discussions around Zin in the future for sure. And Shaitan saying punishment for tardiness, wearing an Apple Watch. Yeah, I mean, don't get me started with the Apple Watch. It's okay, it's good, it does its job, but I mean, it's disposable, and I don't like that. Watches should not be disposable items. So thank you for this, Amar. Really nice setting. I like the fire in the background. You got a nice display here. And then we're going to start pretty quickly with quite a heavy hitter from Ant. And as far as I know, this is a new piece to Ant's collection. It's a 5527G. So it is your Calatrava with a date. But there's something quite special about the back. And I think the 27 is the element that highlights that small detail. And going to catch up with all of you here. Like the bezel, pork fat. Dig your name, pork fat. Yeah, it is cool. I must say, fluted bezels on the date just does definitely add a nice element to the piece. I wonder if this is a 41. I don't think this is 36. It looks a little bit bigger. I don't know. It's so difficult to judge unless you know the person's wrist side, you know? So this is a gorgeous Calatrava. The elements that I do enjoy, I mean, once again, when I get these submissions, I generally just rename them and save them. So I don't spend a lot of time looking at the pieces. But the batons are quite distinct and unique to this model. I don't think we have any more. No, I don't think we have any more Calatravas on the show. This is the one. But what I also enjoy is the fact that even the date complication has a baton on the side. But the real party piece about this watch, and I think the reference 27 is what makes it so unique, is that it has an officer's caseback. And say what you like about officers' casebacks, they're very temperamental things. I mean, you're dealing with that much material that's holding it all together. But the show of being able to open it up and display the movement like that, it's just incredible. So Truth Fears, good evening, welcome. Ben Space Vulture, great to have you all here. If I'm not referring to you in the chat, I'm trying to go back and forth, as we know, as it is. And you're in the chat, great. Is this a new piece? I feel like this is a new acquisition of yours. And there's a couple of new pieces on the show that I hope to debut for everyone. We'll be seeing. But yeah, the 5227 is stunning. And the officer's case back, I think, is such a win. Now, it's fairly modern because it has a Patek Philippe seal. Might want to know, yeah, new edition. Awesome, Ant. It's a great edition. When I think about your collection, have you still got all the pieces that you had in the original, in the original collection that you sent me? Or is this a trade for something else? Did you swap something out? Oh, it's so clean. It's also fantastic seeing movements. If you have watches with display backs, please send them in, because guaranteed they'll be shown. That's just what we do. Absolutely gorgeous. Thank you for this, Ant. Great way to start the show. Next is from Anthony. Anthony sends in a Chronorus. I've never heard of. It's such a good use of the two words together. We'll get to it now. Flip and Zippo, thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you so much. And I haven't been checking my emails lately, but I know you've been trying to reach out to me. And yeah, I've been pretty unsociable lately, honestly, with all of this going on in the world. I've tried to put my head down to get as much of this stuff out as possible. And I leave a lot of stuff on the wayside, like communicating with people. It's a bad habit. But if you can send me another email, I would love to collaborate if you like in the future or whatever else. Yeah, I'm going to catch up with all of you, the rest of you in the chats here. Fan of Noel crowns. Yeah, they are great, Boozer. So let's get into this piece. Chronorus. Let me see if there's another shot of the actual name. So it's literally a chron. The idea is it's chrono with Oris attached to it as one as one word, and I find that pretty hilarious, pretty cool. The joke is, though, it's not a chronograph; it's a chronometer. So Chronorus makes sense. But these pushers, they're not pushers; they're actually just crowns. One's a compressor crown for the inset bezel. The other is your crown for setting the time and date. But the presence of it is superb. I think the case, the styling really fits the period, the time period, late 60s, early 70s. We've got the elements that we expect to see on a watch like this, with the squared off plots, orange highlights. Looks terrific. It does really look like a piece from that time period. I don't know so much about why you have Chronorus and Oris on the dial at once. It might have been a bit cleaner if you'd used Chronorus on the top and just scrapped the Oris branding, There's talks about drinks. Someone who's at Hans having a Malbec. I'm sober this evening. I decided, because of the last show, if any of you had joined during the last show, I was drinking Monkey Shoulder and lost my voice for about a good 10, 15 seconds completely. Never happened before. So I've decided triple shot of coffee, and that's double shot, and that's me. Chronorus, liver fluke. Yeah, so it is a very interesting name, must say. And I don't know if this is the same. Okay, sorry. This is the Anthony who sent in. Oh, you're kidding me. This is the Anthony who sent in his Black Bay. The same Anthony sent in the Chronorus. And this is another shot of his Black Bay that was featured at the beginning of the show. Very clean looking watch. And there was talk about, pour yourself something nice, Neil. Yeah, I've pretty poor wine at the moment. I think I have half a bottle of wine in the kitchen, but that's about it. There was talk about, I'm on Instagram at the moment. I really enjoy it on occasion. If I don't reply to your Instagram messages, it's because I just don't. I've got like 90 DMs to get back to, but sometimes I post pictures. I use it as a bit of a notification place to tell everyone what's going on and what new videos are coming out. But I've been posting shots of my little Seamaster, and there have been a few comments saying that the more versatile watch in the set between this and the Tudor, the Black Bay, would be the 58. That's not the 58. Would be the GMT, just because of the added complication, the different colors. I have to agree. I mean, there's definitely some backing to that. The debate between Tudor and Oris could go on for ages, but I think this combination is superb. I really enjoy the idea that he's even wearing camo olive drab trousers, so it really goes nicely together. Very casual. Nice seeing like I said in the beginning, nice seeing this watch off its bracelet, on a strap. And Neil says, love the 57. It is an amazing piece. I've been wearing it for about 3 months at this point, and to this day, still I'm wearing it right now. My opinion on it hasn't changed one bit. I think it's fantastic. It just does everything. I wear it everywhere. It's great. I really enjoy it. Okay, going to carry on. BDev. I think BDev is in the chat. He sends in a few piece. is. Seiko Turtle Pro Specs, nice way to start. And some of these photos are just insane. They are incredible. I can't thank you all enough for sending in such amazing shots of your watches. Not only is the photography great, but we get to see them in such detail, and it really is appreciated. I mean, it just makes the experience all the better for us, you know? And there's talk about Ploprof from Boozer. I've got a question to ask of all of you, by the way. I saw this 57 Seamaster on a Ploprof shark mesh bracelet, and I'm in love. So if I can find a 1970s era seatbelt Ploprof bracelet, if any of you know anyone who has one or is willing to offer one, I would love to get one for this piece. I think it would look so good. I need to try and find the person on Instagram that had the collection at one stage. It looks so nice. Anyway, so we start with the Seiko Turtle Pro Specs line. Very divisive talking about just where the Pro Specs line sits and the prices they're offering on their pieces nowadays. A lot of their watches, they seem to be trying to push into that more higher end side of the pricing scale, to many enthusiasts' chagrin. But I mean, some of these watches are superb. Speaking of which, next week's show also features a Seiko with the Pro Specs and all of that. Yeah, it's a great watch. So we're going to carry on through, and the next is a Vostok, which I don't think we've ever. Is this I don't even know what it's called. The Amphibia. Do they call this an Amphibia? I don't know, but haven't featured this particular model on the show before, I don't think. Also on a shark mesh bracelet, which is nice. Great combination of colors. I'm sure we all have our opinions on Vostok, and some adore them just because they are usable, wearable. You can beat them to pieces and they'll still work for you, you know? So Rob Ward asking me, sorry to bother, but if we want to send you wrist shots, what do we do? If you look to the description of this video, if you scroll a little bit down on your screen, you will see that my email address it's in the description, but I normally also link it at the end of the show. And you just email me the shot. And if you want me to give me some more details about the piece, that's it. But just simply email me the shot at the address. I save it. I assign your name to it. That's it. It's really simple, basic. And Boza says it's a scuba comrade. Thank you for that. Amphibia scuba. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Vodka diver. I like that, Julian. Yeah, nice. One thing I've noticed is just what this lighting allows us to see is the color scheme. We get to see a really nice hue of the blue, how it contrasts with the red. I don't know how much these watches go for, but I mean, price is not a factor at all, these pieces. You just get them to have fun, you know. Some more shots from BDev. He sends in a Grand Prix. Now, I think, I remember what he said about it. He said something like, they are pretty affordable, they're pretty easy to find, they're peculiar, they're outliers, but it falls into that same line of watches from the 60s. This feels just like a 60s era piece. Has a lot of hallmarks that we recognize here, no? And it looks stunning. It really does look nice. And it's got a world timer of some kind. I don't know how exactly that would work. It's got a GMT setting on the bezel, but it also has, on the inside, it has a countdown timer. But the dial itself, there's actually a few vintage divers that we'll be looking at later on that share the same dial proportions and scale and features. And we've spoken about this before, but it's amazing to think that dial manufacturers were pretty much outsourced back in the day. And watches were assembled from parts bins, essentially. The cases, the dials, the bezels were just thrown together, and there's the watch, send it out. Reminds me of Zodiac, Hans says. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's peculiar. But then I also see Seamaster 300 from that time period. You recognize the way the batons are squared off next to the 36912. There's lots of pieces. Some names that we have never heard of, some names that have faded into obscurity, like this, for example, Grand Prix, unreal. Nice strap as well. I mean, I can imagine it's about 38 mils in size. And last from BDev is a Zin 104. And this is really nice. Got a flip-out knife. We've got a 1911 of some kind. This family, I really was blown away. What happens sometimes, a rubber wood asking if it's a roulette date or all red. I really don't know. It might be a roulette. I don't know if brands tend to have a solid color with all of their setups. I would imagine it's a roulette. That's more in line with the time period, I would imagine. So yeah, Zin, I stumbled onto the brand, and I've been following Zin for a while, but never really got into the name, you know? And then just decided, okay, let's for a change sit back and just look at Zin watches. And it just hit me when I started looking into their catalog and seeing the variety. Just within the Easy M line, there's enough. But all these references, the big mistake I made, obviously, is the 903, that is the reference, right? It's the Navi timer, the original Navi timer. It's amazing just how German design influenced so many Swiss brands that we know today. Zin being one, Hanhart being another. And it's going to be good getting into a few more military spec videos, because we're going to be talking about just how those influences changed over time, and it should be good. Okay, going to carry on through here. Thank you for all of these, B-Dev, if you're still here. Next is from Blaine. Blaine sends me a Prim. Now, it took me a little bit of time to work out this brand. Prim is a Czech brand, okay? And this is a tribute to Hiroshima. So this piece is it's a memorial piece, basically. And it's fascinating. Of course, we're going to see the movement in a second. And Matthew asking, was that a 104? Yes, it's a 104. So we have Breguet hands, we have Breguet numerals from 1949. So Prim, I have absolutely no idea about this brand. But this is I hope I'm saying this right. I've got a little bit of a caption here highlighting, I think it's platinum. It's a full platinum piece. And if we turn the watch around, apart from all the inscriptions on the back, which is kind of bleak, it's an 18 karat red gold movement and just really nice and clean. I don't understand why brands do this to their clear glass backs. I mean, that's like, you want to enjoy the movement, but you've got this layer of everything on top of it, you know? Reminds me of what Omega does with a lot of their pieces. Prim is a town in Fallout New Vegas. That's good to know. So they call this the Legacy One. Bohemian, crystal, Prim caliber 93, manufactured. Okay, so I have absolutely no idea about this brand. I just see it says 1915 to 2015, Hiroshima Memorial. And it's just a simple, basic dress piece. I'm pretty sure, almost 100% sure, it's platinum with a red gold movement. Gorgeous looking watch. And it's something that I've never seen before. A brand that I've never heard of. I'm sure most of us feel the same. Zane, welcome. If you sent me an email, Zane, I'm sorry, but I didn't save it. I was diligent this week, but I stopped about 3 hours ago. So if I missed you, I really do apologize, Zane. But we still have Russell. Russell sent in a great piece. So Blaine, thank you for sending this in. Really nice seeing a different brand. Can't say I've heard of Prim before, but the combination of elements, you can never go wrong with Breguet hands, Breguet numerals, clean, simple case. Next comes from Bobby. Bobby's been wearing 2 Panerais over the last few weeks, and this one I want to focus on in particular. It's a reference 1055 submersible. It's a Luminor, right? I always think Luminor when I see the Crown Guard, but it's that olive drab that I think is stunning. I actually made a video about this watch 6 months ago, maybe, who knows? But the combination of parts, we can talk. I think in future, I'd like to discuss Panerai a bit more as a brand and maybe throw in some suggestions about what they could possibly do to make the watches, stand out even more, keeping to their design styling, but maybe changing a few elements in places. But I just love the olive drab on this piece. I think it looks so good. It's a very aggressive piece. I must say the Luminor, compared to the Radiomir, the Luminor is a much more brutal piece for sure. But such a nice shot. We get to see all the details. And then over here, he also sent in his 683, another submersible. Really nice highlights and contrast. I think he just enjoys the aesthetic. And as everyday wearers, pretty impressive to rock these pieces. This one stands out to me. Anything in olive drab catches my attention, Nick Jones, love this, Pam. They are stunning. And it is the brand itself. It's funny how it's fallen out of love over the last few years. But I mean, saying that, I really enjoy the fact that they keep to their styling and their identity. They don't waver for anyone else. There's a couple of brands out there. Speaking of which, I'm currently working on, I'm almost finished the video on watches and cars, car brands with watches. it was so much fun putting together. It's done. I mean, come tomorrow, I'm just going to edit the photos together and it'll be finished. But some of the cars I think you will really like. The pairings, I was a lot more methodical with how I paired brands with cars. Oh, I really enjoyed it. So yeah, there's some good stuff coming out in the next few weeks. That's all I'm saying. So thank you for this, Bobby. Superb. Next from Brandon, and I really, really like this. So this is his No Date Submariner 114060 on a Haverston NATO strap. Now, Haverston does quite an interesting thing with the way they make their tribute elements. So I'll catch up with you in the chat. Again, if you want to get my attention, tag me at @idguy in the chat and I'll get to it. Neil, yeah, it really was good. Cars with watches, just discussing brand history and brand identity, where they possibly sit with price ranges. I was a bit more observant with some of those details. I think the end result is going to be nice. I've already listened to it fully, so it's all coming together. Anyway, so Haverston straps. Now, this strap in particular pays tribute to a very specific Dakota. I think it's called a DC3. I even saved a picture of the plane just to highlight this. And it's because of this color scheme. If you look on the wing, if you look on the fuselage, the idea of having the black and white accents, I think it's stunning. I mean, that is real. When it comes to proper inspiration behind your color scheme, your styling, design, it's so nice seeing a brand actually really thinking in more detail about. It's a C47. Thank you, Blue Shirt. It's so nice seeing a brand actually thinking about how best they could combine elements. And this plane, I am by, as you can probably tell, DC3, Shaitan says. You know, as you can probably tell, I'm not a plane junkie, but can I throw it out there that this is probably one of the best planes ever made in history? Because D-Day invasion plane, as Blue Shirt says, yes, used in the 40s. My dad was jumping out of these in the 70s in the Rhodesian Bush War. I'm pretty sure these were also used in Vietnam. And it's amazing how versatile these planes are. My dad told me he jumped out of this plane at least 1,000 times in the low altitude. When it comes to the Halo stuff, he was jumping out of Boeings. But yeah, I mean, it's incredible. These rickety old machines just are bulletproof, and it's amazing how they pass through time. So yeah, just seeing this combination of elements, I think seeing a sub on a different strap, it's nice change. And it won't be the first time. We're going to see some great combinations quite soon, actually, as we get to our man, Fahim, King Flume. Carl saying, I flew on DC-3s a ton back in the 70s. Yeah, I mean, that was just the way. It was like the taxi, you know? Fahim's on, fantastic. Okay, well, looking forward to sharing your divisive strap choices, Fahim. I think people are gonna. I think everyone should comment yay or nay when we get to them. Yeah. Anyway, so really nice. Once again, the no date complication, the simplicity of the piece. Yeah, I mean, you can't beat a sub at the end of the day when it comes to just what it's managed to do over time. Boozer, if you're in the chat, you've sent this in. I think you sent it in today. It's a Schumacher Speedmaster next to a really cool BMW. I can't see that. I'm not a bike junkie either. Planes and bikes, don't ask me about them. I'm better with cars. But this combination, I think Fahim would like this, actually, who's in the chat. He sent in a Tintin, but this Schumacher layout is really interesting. Talk about your contrast and your highlight. Really nice combination of red and black accents. Let's get right in, and I'll get back to you in the chat while we're sitting on it. Maynard, thanks as always. Oh, it's a pleasure. I mean, I love it. It lets me actually chat to you. I'm not diligent when it comes to replying to comments on videos. I wish I could reply to 100 comments, but I just cannot. It's 3-4 hours worth of work to do. But this allows me to just reach out to all of you and chat away as we just page through the endless magazine that is everyone's watches. It's a great concept. I have Zane to thank for this concept, asking me to feature some wrist shots during the show. So many submissions came in that it became a show itself, which is amazing. You are, I mean, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be doing this. So it really is an absolute pleasure to do it. I thought Boozer was a brother from Ron. Yes, I mean, this is a great combination. I really enjoy the contrast and the highlights. Superb. It's a 42 mil as well. So it's your standard Speedmaster Professional. I think it has a Hesselite crystal. It looks pretty clear, probably sapphire. But the Shumi, I mean, there's so many variants in the family. Okay, going to carry on through. Boozer, thank you for sending this in. And let's roll. Cedar Canoe, I don't know if he's in the chat. I don't know if it was me saving it or not, but he sent me, the resolution is pretty low. Might have been from my end. He sends me a Seiko Panda, and the reference is 6180020. He has a great collection of pieces, and it's amazing how lots of us in the community, what I've noticed, we'll actually see during the show, is that a lot of us collect certain modern pieces, Rolexes, Omegas, whatever, and then hone in on a brand like Zin, possibly, or as we will see when we get to Juan, Hamiltons, vintage Hamiltons. Cedar Canoe seems to just love Seiko, vintage Seiko chronographs. There he is, fantastic. So this combination, I mean, we've actually seen a few of these pieces that he shared with us before, and they all adopt the same aesthetic, the same dial layout, the day-date complication. I feel like it's the same movement with all of these pieces, you know. That's a great piece. I really enjoy the contrast. Really not easy to read, easy to see, you know, when it comes to separating your eye from the dial, from the handset, the sub-dials. Something about the uniformity of having the Seiko. Hope you're seeing this okay. It's a little bit pixelated. I hope you see the uniformity of having the Seiko name on the left with the day date. It's just a great amount of balance there. Your very retro, you know, 70s era syringe, we call them cricket bat styled hands, basically, you know. Yeah, it's great. So thank you for sending this in, Cedar. We're going to carry on through because I have so many. There are just so many watches. What are we at now? 31 minutes. Holy Moses. How are we going to... I have to motor, or else we're going to just be stuck. Sevi, our man, who he's been caught driving a 2CV. He loves vintage film cameras. And the first watch he ever sent into the show was this Zenith Daytona, this two-tone, the black. But here is a set of Zeniths, a Zenith trio, he calls them. And we get to just enjoy two-tone goodness along with an El Primero automatic. I mean, it's just great, right? Let's see. I'm going to leave this here as I get to you in the chat. Drowning in watches. You know, this is the problem. I said to myself at one stage, let's just keep it short. 100 watches, fine. But then I think, you know, I have space, I have time, and then it gets a little bit hairy. So I will have to motor through some of these, sadly. But you know, as we go, great combination. I can honestly say I've never seen two Zeniths together, black and white, both being two-tone. Nice pairing, no, on a rubber strap. Yeah, got a great taste. And then to an El Primero, there's another very unique El Primero. Pat, welcome to the show. There's a very unique El Primero that we will be seeing closer to the end of the show, an A384 that one of our fellow viewers has just picked up for himself, and he just is in love with it. So yeah, look forward to sharing that with you, all of you just now. Nice little trumpet in the background as well. Great assembly. Sevi, you always send amazing stuff. I'm going to carry on through here. From Chris, sending in a Bolivar Accutron Astronaut from 1969. And the unique feature about this piece, I'll give you a second to maybe guess. The unique feature is that it has two separate 12-hour sections on the bezel. There's no 24-hour time. It's only 12-hour. BDev says it's a pocket trumpet. Thank you for that. So those peculiar bezel, I've never seen one of these before. Notice how we have 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. And then we go back to 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. There's no 24-hour time, which is peculiar. So for a GMT, the only way you'd be able to really differentiate is probably, you know, the lighter side for day, the dark side for night. Just a basic, simple piece. This is on his wrist. Oops. I hate when I scroll sometimes. Magic trackpad. Now I got to warm up my hand. Doesn't say Bolivar, as Shashank says, I know. And that's another thing which I find peculiar. It just says Accutron. But he did highlight it's a Bolivar Accutron from 1969. The most peculiar bezel I've seen in a while. Strange combination. And you notice just how the dial is just so symmetrical. There are no sections to really divide up the plots. There's no date complication, which is peculiar. Really nice piece, though. 1969, they were just throwing everything around and hoping that something would stick, you know. Doctor says, did you have any submissions by females? Oh, you'll be surprised, actually. There's a few this evening that I think you will enjoy, coming up quite soon, actually. I sometimes do. Most of the time, it's normally husband and wife, but Founder Time is Capital, his daughters and his PA sent in a really nice selection of pieces that we'll be looking at in a second. Okay, self-setting. Crown is probably reset. Yeah, I haven't seen the crown. You're right. It might be underneath the bezel, maybe. I don't know. Again, it was just piecing parts together. There was no rhyme or reason with any of these. Okay, I'm going to carry on through. So Chris sent in a few pieces. The first that I had to say for all of us, what a mint piece. It is just, this is, again, first time I've seen this watch up close. Maybe if I turn it vertical, is that better? Oh my goodness. 1675 on a Jubilee, sitting in blueberries, because that's what you do. I think that was his caption. Look how clean that case is. It's been polished before, pretty sure. You can see by the edges here, there's a little bit rounded off, but the dial is so clean. Oh, it's stunning. The bezel's in good condition. You can't beat a 1675. You know, there's just something about this watch that is one of my first vintage Rolex pieces I ever wore was a mint 1675, the great history. Also on a Jubilee, just exactly like this, actually. I don't even think the hands have been replaced. I'm looking at the GMT hand. It looks a little bit whiter, but no, I think this is probably all original. That's great. What a phenomenal watch. I'd love to feature this more in future. For him saying, like how I say, mint. Yeah, man, South Africans, that's just how we speak, you know, brother. So, yeah. So listen to me, says 4-hand dials are ugly and confusing when glanced at. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the added complication is peculiar. And if you look at a Sky Dweller video that I made a couple of months back, I talk about just how the GMT watch, to me, as a concept, feels very strange when you consider what the Sky Dweller has managed to do as this GMT piece. But yeah, that's a story for another time. Next from Chris, same guy. He sends in his stunning root beer. I think we featured this last week, but it was on a distressed leather. And now he's in, I think he's in Utrecht. In the sun, we get to just see that beautiful dial. And there's just something about this piece, the Tiger's Eye, reminds me of South Africa. I used to love collecting Tiger's Eye stones when I was a kid. And there's just something so charming with a nipple dial. I don't think that's up everyone's alley, but he sent a few of these, and I was trying to find a good shot. So he's got a few off-angle shots. The idea was just to see it on a bracelet for a change. If it was me getting this piece, I would have it on a Jubilee, personally. But as a combination, I mean, this is the, if anyone knows the modern CHNR root beer that we know, this is the original. This is the one that really started the trend. And it just screams 70s, you know, the clothing of the time, interiors, a lot of use of brown in everything, with cars, with houses. So we really get to see a time capsule here. That's a stunning watch. Thank you for sending this in, Chris. Next we got from Curtis. This is a shot. He loves his Austin Healey's. This is a bug eye Sprite from one of his friends, I think. I don't know if he said it's his wife's or if it's his friend's, but he sends in another Zin 104. And this is the one I prefer of the two, with the numerals on the dial. And this is also thanks to the Zin video. Oh, Chris, is okay. Don't worry about it. I get so many, as we will see when we get to Juan in a second. Juan, I think if we had to highlight him, he is tenacious. He sends in so much, and I have to try and pick out bits and pieces. So Shaitan's saying, have you heard of the farmer who took his cow to the vet in Pretoria? He got a huge bull. No, I can't say I have, Shaitan. So Frog Eye Sprite, let's get back, or Bug Eye Sprite, as Curtis says. And he did send me some more photos of his car, so I'll feature that in the next show. I need to remind myself. I'll come back and watch this again. But another Zin 104 on a superb leather strap. It's just great. I think it's one of those utilitarian, all area used watches. Nice that it's on a rally strap as well, or racing strap, whatever you want to call it. Stunning piece. Zin, it's what would we call it? I mean, it's not exactly entry level, but it definitely hits a different category on its own. It's in its own realm, its own space, you know? Okay, gonna carry on with the selection because we're still on C and we're already 40 minutes into the show. Oh my. So next comes from Krapica. Krapica, this was his email, so I don't know if he's pulling my leg or if this is his surname, Krapica. But he is sitting on the couch. This looks like a Doberman in the background with his No Date Submariner. And another one. I mean, I feel like this show is quite Rolex heavy in a few areas, but we will, of course, there's lots more variety as we go through. And there's some amazing dogs that we will be seeing on the show, actually. It's pretty cool. So yeah, No Date Sub we've had a look at already. Thank you for sending this in, Krapica. Great piece. I mean, it's just so symmetrical and clean and clear. And dog really does not care about being there, you know. It's awesome. So Dear Artifact is next. And he sends in what is called, I hope I'm saying this right, it's called the pre-shock. This is a pre-G-Shock, the reference Casio DW290. See how we jump from Rolex to Casio? That's just how we do it, you know. Junior, welcome to the show. And someone mentioned Ben, and he said, thanks for this Zin video. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I must say that whole getting into it and studying more about the brand, I really hope to do more in the future, for sure. It's such a fascinating brand. Any pics with lazy greyhounds in the background, Chatan says. I don't think so. No, we have a Rhodesian Ridgeback, and I think we have a golden retriever, but I think that's it. So Dear Artifact sends the most amazing pictures. If you don't follow him on Instagram, I'm putting this in the chat right now as we speak. Let's hope I get this right. Dear Artifact. I hope I got that right. Go onto Instagram and follow him, because his watches, his selection, we have similar tastes, and the pieces, I didn't even know that he had this watch, but it's a great piece, and it's so peculiar. It looks almost like a tombstone. It's asymmetrical. You notice how the case is fatter at the base than at the top, and they really call it the pre-shock. No, what an amazing Buginish. It's an amazing thing. I didn't even know that this watch existed. That's how backwards I am. Just when you think you're on top of things and you're learning, so you get thrown a curveball once again. What an amazing photo. And you can get right in. You can enjoy the LCD screen in all its glory. Okay. So gonna carry on through. Dimitris. So this is what Dimitris says. This brand, it's the only known Greek micro brand, okay? And the name is, I'm going to botch this, Ianos. So it uses a Swiss movement, but it's pretty cool. It's got some orange highlights on the dial. And what I really like, the one element, is that the sub-seconds is recessed underneath the dial, which has a great amount of texture to it. Looks like a solid sandwich dial. The minute track is underneath, the seconds are underneath, and it looks like a propeller as it turns, which I kind of like. I like that little play on elements. But it's nice seeing the combination. You can see that this was taken in Greece. Love Greece. You can see the combination was just, it's peculiar, right? I really enjoy the crown. Again, I don't get to review these watches before the show, so it's nice seeing this combination. Looks like a rubber strap that has the NATO aesthetic behind it. So again, the only known Greek micro brand out there, which is very peculiar, you know. Anyway, and it does have a Swiss ETA, as far as I know. So it's called the Ianos Abyss. And if you want to be a bit more technical, that's how you would say it in Greek. I'm not going to butcher it. I don't want to butcher your names, everyone. But it's a really nice piece. And we're going to move on from, let's get back to Dirk. Ooh. Magic Mouse, work with me here, sweetheart. I got a whole selection from Dirk, who we'll have a look at in a second. Let me catch up with all of you. Bad brand name. Again, Brummy, I'm not fluent in Greek, so Max, is that really the case? I don't know if you're just making fun. Okay, going to carry on through. Thank you for this, Dimitris. I've got to speed up here. So Dirk sends in a whole selection of pieces, and I'm going to slowly, I think this is just a highlight of the watches that he has. I can honestly say I haven't heard of half these names before, but we can have a good look. So this looks like a PVD case watch. The name is Aketo. Never heard of it before. Interesting looking combination. Next is a Fortis B52 titanium chronograph. Fortis is another brand that seems to have so much love and popularity on this platform. It's so busy. You look at that dial, it's just like, it's a visual assault. But again, shares similar elements to Zin pieces. I would imagine that this brand was possibly inspired by Zinn watches back in the day. I don't know. Very German. It does say Swiss made. Is that just the Swiss movement? So it is a German brand. You're going to have to help me here in a few places, people. The first space watch. Bugenish. You're on fire. Okay, we're going to carry on through. He sent a lot of pieces. This is another Fortis. It's called a square chrono. Very Flieger. You notice how the dial's been arranged with the batons and the quarters. Even at the top, we've got a small triangle, little plots, orange highlights. I mean, this is really, really 70s. It looks like it. I mean, just looking at the pushers, it looks like it came exactly off a Hoya Monaco. Now we're going to some vintage pieces from him, and you're going to have to help me out here, ladies and gentlemen. A Gazette automatic, another watch that looks to be from around the 60s or 70s. Fortis made watches for cosmonauts. Thank you for that, Fahim. And then there's so many, I mean, as it is, there's so many watches on the show. I'm going to have to probably up my pace if I if I hope to survive. So this brand is called Gazette automatic, and he did say, I highlighted this, Dad's last watch. And I don't think he gave me a date, but I would imagine 60s, 70s-ish. Amazing how we notice the aesthetics shared between brands, just because dial manufacturers all, again, transplanted their watches over time. Next, transplanted their components, I should say. Next from Dirk, this is a brand called Isotope. And if anyone can speak French, I'm not even going to try and botch that either. But another peculiar, so this is more of a compressor-style diver with a cushion case, integrated style bracelet, great highlights on the bezel, on the dial, and everything else. Sub date at the 4 o'clock position, which is a nice change. Never seen this piece before. Isotope, nice name though. I would imagine it's a micro brand. I really don't know. A British brand, for him says, I really, really don't know. Also notice that this dial looks to be a sandwich dial as well, with some recessed elements to it. Compressor style, so you have one crown to turn the bezel, another crown to adjust the time. And another piece, now let's try and get close in here and highlight this. So the brand is called Osco Parat, and I said Zodiac. I think it has ties to the Zodiac name, and ours, Zodiac Hours. Oh, hold on. So it's Osco Parat Zodiac Hours, my dad's first watch. And you notice how it has all of these Greek symbols around the dial too. Peculiar. I mean, these vintage pieces, we just don't see the styling anymore. We'll notice later on as we get to Juan that we will be seeing all sorts of case forms and stylings from Hamilton's. But as a combination, you know, it's one of those watches. I would imagine this is kind of 50s-ish, you know. Drop of water. Thank you, Mooseman. Ryan's saying, who made the first auto watch? There's lots of debate about that, actually. Talk about, it's Breguet. It seems like Breguet was spoken about as being one of the brands that has done it. It's difficult. It's one of those, you know, it's similar to the tourbillon story. Who made the first tourbillon? Lots of brands seem to cross-pollinate with who did what first. Maybe someone could answer that question. If anyone wants to answer, Ryan, who made the first automatic piece? Perelay from BS. Thank you. Listen to me. Okay, good. That's great. I need to, again, history and me. I'm slow when it comes to studying up on things, but once it's in the head, it's there for life. Okay, we're going to carry on through. We're at F at the moment, and we are almost 50 minutes in. So this is a bit of a change of pace. Founder Timeless Capital caught the bug last week, and he's been in hospital all week. And luckily, he's making a speedy recovery as of now. But his daughter, Megan, sent in not only watches from him, wrist shots from him, but also from herself, her sister, Jacinta, and his 2IC, James's 2IC, Renee. So we'll get to see some great watches now as we run through. So I'm sure all of us can wish James, we know as founder Timeless Capital, as a speedy recovery. And yeah, I felt a bit flat hearing that news last week, and that might have contributed to me not doing a show last week, Saturday. It wasn't nice to hear off the cuff, you know. A lot of us take precautions, but it manages to catch you. So his two watches that his daughter sent in, this is the watches that he collects, just stunning. This first piece is a Pepsi 1675, and he only ever buys one owner, box papers, full set watches. And you notice, I mean, the first part that you see when you look at this piece is just the case is so sharp. The dial, everything is immaculate. I mean, the only kind of degradation you can see is on the bezel. It's simply stunning. But we've seen enough 1675s as it is, you know. The next piece from him, though, this is a watch that we've actually featured on the show before. This is a very unique piece. I'm terrible with this reference by itself. Someone might need to help me with it. But I always think of it as a 1675, but it's not. It has another name to it. But one element that makes it so collectible is it has a serif bezel. It's very seldom that you find solid serif bezels. And again, it's another example. It's just immaculate, clean, spotless, practically, which is incredible. Yeah, so everyone wishing him good luck. Yeah, it was quite a hit. But he's, as of I think yesterday, he's improving, and he should be getting home soon. I think by the end of the weekend, if he's lucky. But yeah, this bug seems to affect us differently. Huh? I really hope you're all looking after yourselves. It's a reality check, you know. Really hope you are keeping yourselves safe and well at this time. And next, from his daughters and his 2IC. I like to call her his 2IC because she basically runs the operations behind the scene, Renee. So John White, welcome to the show. Orange Hand saying a 16710. That is probably the reference. I'm useless with this particular model. I can never get it. Some watches I can just prattle on the references. Others don't stick. So this being a 16710, I'm taking a word for it, Orange Hand. Stunning watch. I really like this combination, black on black. Okay. And Thomas Burnett, thank you. Get well, James. Yeah, for sure. Thomas and I keep in touch with James, and we've been getting some feedback from him recently. Okay. So next up, this is from his daughters and his TA or his PA. So this is from, I'm guessing, I don't know which daughter's watch belongs to who, but I know his one daughter really loves rose gold. And this is a day date, clean, clear, simple, rose gold, gorgeous dial. I have a feeling that this is a brown dial. And as a combination, I mean, can you go wrong with a day date? There's actually so many Rolexes on the show. I've just come to realize, yeah, there's quite a few that we will be seeing, but in between we get lots of other cool stuff. So it's just great. I mean, the day date needs to have a video by itself, but this setting with the fluted bezel, president bracelets, nice honeycomb texture on the dial, stick batons instead of your Roman numerals, I think makes the day date really something. The date just, I think, deserves Romans, where I think the batons really make this piece great as a combination. And Chaitan's saying, I'd take a day date over a Daytona any day. Yeah, it's stunning. There's a great Daytona that we'll see in a second, though, as we get through. So this is from Jacinta. I would imagine Jacinta's, this is her piece. From Megan, again, this is James's daughters. Megan, this is a Royal Oak with a diamond setting, and I feel like this is factory set. What I really enjoy about this combination, and if I'm right, Megan enjoys vintage over anything else, where Jacinta enjoys rose gold with her pieces, primarily. Megan more enjoys vintage pieces and also is interested in the more understated stuff. This size looks superb. I remember there was a doctor asking about if we feature watches on women on the show. Well, we've got some examples here. I think the size and the presence of this watch on the wrist looks fantastic. And with the way the setting of the diamonds are on the bezel, it is so understated. I mean, you wouldn't even notice. It's very, very low key. But again, Royal Oaks, to me, they need to be slightly undersized, I think. You need to have that, the presence needs to be there, but out of the way. I think that's really what Genta wanted to achieve with this watch, which is why the originals were like 39 millimeters, you know. But as a combination, two-tone rose gold. Also really like the combination of the centers in between. But it's just such a clean-looking piece. Matching bracelet, really cool shoes. I'm not a shoe nut either. I'm sure most of you enjoy your shoes, would probably be able to tell me a bit more about them. But a great combination. And I hope I'm getting this right, but this is from Renee, his 2IC. And I think James bought this for her recently. So it's a solid gold Zenith, but she wears it on a Perlon strap. And I think as a combination. When it comes to a Daytona, I think solid gold Zenith is quite something spectacular. So it's really nice. We see three ladies wearing three very distinct and different pieces, all having their own tastes. This is obviously yellow gold, where we've had a look at two-tone rose, and that's so nice. Also, really enjoy how they match the colors together. We've got gold on the cuffs, gold on the wrist. It's great. A solid gold Zenith Daytona for your everyday wear, I think, is just under the radar. It's the way to go. You know, really just tasteful. Really tasteful pieces across the board. And it's, I mean, we talk about diamonds and the way they're used in watches. Sometimes they can be so ostentatious, but some brands really know how to execute diamonds well. This kind of setting is superb for a woman's wrist. The day date, I think this is a 41. It's a monster. I think she just loves wearing big rose gold pieces. That's her forte. Yeah, it's just stunning. So thank you everyone for sending these in. The ladies, thank you Megan for sending all of these pieces in from James and the family. I really hope you're all looking after yourselves, keeping well. And yeah, I hope James has a speedy recovery and he gets back on the show and we get to chat some more in the future. Okay, going to carry on through. Dirk, I think we actually, I made a bit of a mistake with the assignment. This is a Timex from Dirk. I think this was his first watch. So we just went from Rolexes and APs to a Timex. That's just what we do here. This was the last watch that he sent in, his first watch, a manual wind Timex. Really great quality we get to see on the wrist. Now we have Fahim. Now Fahim is in the chat. He's generally there. He's there quite often. Okay, this is going to be an interesting discussion to have. He says, I've been playing around with straps a lot lately. It's amazing just how many Rolexes are on the show, no? Nice juxtaposition, Hans says. Yeah, this is how we do it, you know. ID client saying Timex. That's funny. So Fahim is a strap junkie. He loves swapping out straps on his watches. And he just recently, over the last few days, he's been having a lot of fun with them. Pairing a khaki strap with a Batman. And I think this is the second gen. This is on a Jubilee. And then this combination looks superb. This gray, it's like a really heavy canvas on the Explorer 2. Nice combination. I don't know so much about the tan, but they really are stunning looking straps, solid. This combination I find so perplexing, but that's just the way. There he is. Check the reactions. Told you. Yeah, for sure. I want to see lots of anger and what another good word. See, I'm on the fly. I can't think of big words as I'm talking. So next from him, he sent in a couple more. This combination I like. Again, the tan on the Tintin, I don't know so much, but the red on the Batman. I mean, it's so funny. It's great. It's like you're wearing a Pepsi, but you're not wearing a Pepsi, you know? This is funny. It's pure evil, as Bugner says. This is pure evil. Yeah, because many people really are so, they do not want these watches off their bracelets. I mean, honestly, Rolex bracelets, can you get better? But some people vehemently refuse to take their bracelets off. So it says something when Fahim just goes nuts with the strap change tool. And in contrast to what we've just, Matthew's saying hipster, Fahim, I wouldn't call him a hipster. He's a real down to earth. He's down to earth. That's the best way you can probably describe him. He's a South African as well. He's just like me. Who makes these straps? Boozer asks. Fahim, if you'd like to highlight that in the chat, would be good. So brave. Oh, for sure. I've never fallen in love with a Batman, as Ron says. Yeah, it's a peculiar piece. I enjoy the combination purely from a design front with the blue-black combination, day and night sky. But otherwise, I mean, between these two, I would probably take the Tintin over the Batman, really, when I think about it. I need a Speedmaster in my life, and the Tintin is a really unique one, you know? Okay. But then in contrast to these peculiar pieces, he sends in his pride and joy, his Jaune Resonance. And don't worry, there'll be a movement shot. We're going to enjoy some stunning. So this is another strap that he swapped out. This watch doesn't originally come on a gray strap. If you don't follow him on Instagram, what am I doing here? Fahim, King Flume, get on Instagram now and follow King Flume, because you'll see his photography is incredible, as you can see right now. This is one of his latest acquisitions. He picked up from a good friend of ours, and it is just stunning. I want to talk about this watch in a bit more. Let's get another shot up. There we go. I mean, if you don't follow him on Instagram, what are you doing? Get on there now and follow what he's putting out. So the Jean Resonance, he sent me he tried to explain it to me, but I had to watch a video from Watchfinder to really get a good understanding of how this watch works. It's a self-regulated piece. Two movements run independently of each other, and through the sound that passes through a central balance, as we will get to in a second, these two watches manage to actually regulate themselves, keep themselves in perfect synchronization. So what we have here on the right-hand side is your standard time, and then we have your 24-hour time on the left. I don't know, I have a feeling that these two times cannot be set independently. They're set together. But the Jean Resonance, it's really, I found it to be quite a peculiar one at first. Kind of gives you that bug eye impression. Reminds you of a robot, for sure, robot face. But it's growing on me, you know. Jean as a brand, I think you will appreciate what I said when I paired Jean with a car brand. I think you'll appreciate that background. But then let's just get into the movement. What are we doing here? Again, if you don't follow Fahim on Instagram, King Flume, you are just wasting. They can be set independently. Thank you for him. One crown. And this is another thing that I also enjoy. Oh, they're two separate crowns. Hold on a sec. No, they're actually two crowns. There's one at the top and one the right-hand side here. So you have a 40-hour power reserve, independent setting. So I can imagine one crown operates. One crown is for winding, and the one crown is for setting the two times. I hope I got that right. But this movement. So through this little central bridge, it's an enigma, actually. It's this watch has been able to, it's a real, I mean, if we talk about relativity and science experiments, okay, this watch really managed to prove a lot of people wrong about how important sound is. The story is basically, a famous watchmaker, I think it was a scientist actually, he was sick in bed. I'm going to try and get this right. He was sick in bed and he saw his two clocks on the wall. No idea why he had two clocks on the wall, but they were both running in perfect sync with each other. And he didn't understand why. And it took like 300, 400 years to get the understanding correct that sound or any kind of, it has to do with sound more than vibration, but that's sent through a central arm allows for these two movements to balance each other out. It's incredible. It really is such an incredible watch. It's definitely, I would say, near to the best watch that we're going to be seeing on the show. There's one really stunning piece that we'll be looking at the end, but for him, I mean, you cannot deny that this is just, it's just absolutely beautiful, stunning. And then next to it, because he loves to show off, he sends in a Unimatic NASA, because I mean, that's just what you do. A real watch enthusiast doesn't worry about price. You get what you love, get what you enjoy, and on a bright yellow strap, a brand Unimatic I don't know anything about. I have to study more in future. So Fahim says one crown on top. Let me get the watch back up for everyone to look at. The crown on the top, you pull out and turn either way to set either time. Push in for winding. Side crown to reset the seconds hands only. Oh, fantastic. Okay, makes more sense. So it's the synchronizer element. Oh, it's so good. Oh, fascinating piece. It's one of a kind. Jean as a brand. I might as well just tell you what I paired Jean. I paired Jean with Pagani, the brand Pagani. And my rationale behind it was saying that Jean has managed to take modern and retro, create his own styling, fully bespoke, crafted in very small numbers by a small amount of people. So I think Pagani as a name, as a car brand, lines up with Jean when it comes to that concept, experimental approach, but really calls back to past elements and yeah, beautiful. So Fahim, thank you for these. It's great. Your watches were the last that I saved for the show. And then we jump to Fauzi. Now, Fauzi is another fellow South African. And we've connected. We won't believe it, but we actually lived just up the road from each other when I lived in Cape Town many years back. And it's amazing just how we connect on this platform, you know. He sends in a Patek Gondolo. He's got a Coke in the background there. And let's get another shot. So the reference for this piece, that's a beautiful shot. This is one of the nicest shots for the show, actually. So it's a reference 5109G. And it's got a fancy pendant here. We've got a spear pendant that he picked up in Hout Bay with a very typical motif that you see all over South Africa. Oh, it's a stunning watch. The gondola is a watch that doesn't really get much attention. You know, it's not your typical rounded piece, but it has that tank aesthetic behind it with Breguet numerals and everything. I mean, it's really clean. It's definitely not everyone's cup of tea, but as far as these pieces go, they are relatively affordable in the scheme of things because they just aren't hot. People don't want them. Nice Breguet numerals, as Zane says. Welcome back, Zane. If you've been on the show the entire, I don't know if you saw the resonance a second ago, or if you've just joined us again. Yeah, it's just great. Thank you for sending this in, Fauzi. What a stunning shot as well. And let me see if I can catch up with you a bit more Assegai tip for sure, Eric. Prefer the JLC Reverso. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the thing is with the Reverso is it's one of those pieces that's transcended time. I mean, from the 30s, and it still is as amazing as it was then. This piece, a little bit more old, it looks a bit more dated when you compare it to the Reverso, I would say. But as far as, and I can't remember you ever telling me about this piece, Fauzi, so I'm sure this is a new acquisition, if I got it wrong. Another detail that I didn't point out, as Eric Bell mentions, Assegai spearhead. Look at the hour hand. Very much like an Assegai. I think that's what he tried to pair off here, you know? Oh, great. Thank you for sending this in. Next, going to carry on through from Jean-Luca. He sends in 2 vintage IWCs, yacht clubs. And as a brand, IWC is a name that deserves a lot more praise, considering what they've done in the past and their history. There's a lot to the name. I think as a brand, they're very multifaceted with what they did with regards to pilot watches, supplying field watches to the military. I don't know if IWC, well, they made some amazing concept dive watches. I don't know if there are many. We are going to see an amazing IWC at the end of the show that I got one of our viewers into. We'll have a look. So going to carry on through here. Numerals in platinum. Does Patek reserve Breguet numerals to platinum pieces? Orange Hand asks. That's normally the case, yes, for sure. But this is a G. This is in white gold. So just goes to show that some pieces, I'm pretty sure he picked up this watch for the Breguet numerals. Breguet numerals on a Patek is just clean and stunning. So the elements that I enjoy about this set, you can see that this is so late 60s, 70s, you know, case. The case is just so typical of that time. The dial, everything screams that time period. Champagne elements to it. And one thing that I wish IWC would bring back as a brand is this setting again. This beautiful script, we can't see it very well here, but this script is just so classic. And it just, again, even here, the Schaffhausen underneath in italicized capital font. I don't know if you can see it very well. This needs to be returned, I think. It will just add so much more class to the pieces that they offer. Even a modern watch can look superb with vintage script. And just such a nice combination. Got yellow gold on a red strap. Clean, clear, simple. He really loves these pieces, obviously. And I mean, when it comes to a daily wearer, it's great. So, Tom Austin, welcome to the show. So Zane says, talking about the platinum and Breguet numerals, no namey references, many references have Breguet numerals. Great, thank you. So next from Hussein, he sends in a Rado Jubilee. We haven't seen Rados featured on the show before, I don't think. And his wife bought this for him on their wedding day, I think. I think it was either a wedding anniversary or wedding day. And I mentioned 8 years. I don't know if that had to do anything with it. We've got 3 diamonds on either side. And as a brand, Rado is another name that I need to look into in the future. You always see this brand at airports. That's one thing I just remember about the family. Another thing that I found quite fascinating with the pieces is the way they incorporate the PVD finishing on their cases. Very interested in how they blend black on black elements. We look at the links, we see the polishing in places. I mean, they actually have their own design language, which I find quite impressive, actually, which I should look into the brand a bit more. It's another name that I need to explore. And going to carry on through. Hussein, thank you for sending this in. Next, we have a Zin again. That's so good. I mean, the variety is going to get better and better as we keep going. So I hope I get your name right. Irakli. Iraklis sends in Zin 556, and he's currently watching. I'm sure he just went back to the beginning of the show. Why do we love Zin watches as a community? Which I've just stumbled on as a brand. Zahid says, okay, thank you. A wedding gift from 8 years ago. Thank you. It's great. Thank you for sharing it as well, if you're here. So the 556 is another popular watch brand. And if they say a 556A, I think that is the reference, right? With the numerals, it's very clean. And they just managed to make their own mark with the pieces that they do. I really look forward to going into the brand in more detail in the future. I like this little feature as well. It's great. On a bracelet, this H bracelet, whatever you call it, it's also unique to the brand completely. And I think we can learn a lot from the family when it comes to their pieces. Let's have a look at the date placement as well. Thanks to Shaitan. Thank you for mentioning that. Date placement. They always tend to use black date windows, so they blend in and you barely see them. You know, it's out of the way when you don't want it. Real Flieger elements. Okay, and we're going to. I see Ron's having a go about Nomos and. Oh, Ron, you're fantastic. I love having you here. It's great. Okay, we're going to carry on through. So, if anyone who doesn't know, Ron despises Nomos like the plague. You know, so if you want to get under his skin, mention that you love Nomos and it's the best brand ever. Okay, I'm going to carry on through to Jay. Jay sends in an homage to a big crown Submariner. The family's name is BSH, and it was a precursor to Nakin, or no, it wasn't. A precursor to, what's the brand? NTH. This is like an original. So anyway, it's called the Carolina, I think. I think it's made in California. It uses a Miyota movement. What else did I say? Miyota 1915 incorporates all the elements that we would expect to see from a reference 5508 or earlier, with a lollipop second hand, pencil styled hands. I really kind of wish that Submariners or Tudor as a brand could incorporate this aesthetic. Just imagine the killing, the homage to Black Bear 58. Thanks for that, Rob. So can you imagine Tudor recreating this watch to the T, just like this? Pencil hands, lollipop second hand. That's all they need to do. Call it the Black Bay 58 tradition, or not heritage, but traditional or something. They would make a killing. I mean, this layout, it's so much more less polarizing than a watch with a snowflake handset. You know, just plain, simple, clear. He also sends a lume shot. I think it's C3 Luminova, a nod to history, as some are mentioning in the chat. It's great. I mean, homage watches, they are in a league of their own. And Rob does say Tudor won't abandon their hands. Yeah, absolutely not. It's the one element that differentiates them for sure. And they'll never leave that part. I mean, if it wasn't for the snowflake hand, you wouldn't really call it a Tudor because of just everything else. The aesthetic is borrowed from the Rolex name. But in saying that, yeah, I so look forward to sharing next week's video with all of you. It's going to be one video next week, and it's a biggie. It's a monster, and we look at lots of dive watches, basically. So Dear Artifact saying, sometimes the best design is the original design. Very hard for some designers to parker their ego, though. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a very good statement, Dear Artifact. And it's sad to say. I mean, we're on this watch. Let me just see if I can scroll up and hopefully not lose it. J, BSH. The reality is, the reason why I picked the reissue Seamaster 57 is because the design to me is, I wouldn't say timeless. It's very much rooted in the 50s, but it's the aesthetic that I just love. And sometimes when you see how brands are going with their modern pieces, making them much more bloated and oversized with helium release crowns and stuff like that, I just can't. It just gets under my skin in a way. And this is actually in part with what's going on next week's video. It's all about reissue dive watches, and it's its own genre at this point in time. But we get to really highlight all the little details of lots of brands, of how they just share their own details and aesthetics. It's important. So yeah, what Dear Artifact said, essentially he said, sometimes the best design is the original design. I still find this to be one of the most, when it comes to Omega as a brand, this is the one Omega for me. I wouldn't need another one. I mean, that's it. It has everything I would want out of it. And I think that's something you should all internalize at the end of the day. If you're interested in a brand and a family, really find a watch that manages to harness the elements that made it unique. So we think Rolex, we think lots of things. I would say just your standard, your Mercedes hand, your simple Submariner layout. This piece is a good example to that, you know. There's a mention about Ryan saying Invicta 1953. Apparently, Invicta relaunched their 53 dive watch, I heard. And amazing. I mean, it's hilarious, but amazing. That's why people love the SKX, yeah, for sure. And Dear Artifact saying Omega and Breitling are two of the best at parking their ego for some of their reissues. Oof, talk about Breitling. Have any of you seen the Breitling 57 reissue that they've brought out? It is amazing. And that's also going to be featured on the video next week. Beautiful piece. No one, just go into Google now, look up Breitling 57 reissue. I think they call it 1957, just say. Incredible. Never seen that Super Ocean before. Technically, it's the original Super Ocean from back in the day. Anyway, going to carry on through J. I don't know if this is the same J. It might be a different J. I don't know. This is a Bulliver. No, this is definitely a different J. Bulliver reference. Here we go. 96B229. High frequency quartz. And if anyone understands what 262 kilohertz means when it comes to quartz, I'd like to know. It's probably a serious beat rate, but this is a tribute watch to back in the day. I would imagine it's a modern tribute. I think he sent in another shot. Oh, it's a different piece. Really enjoyed on the shark mesh. I think that the shark mesh corresponds so nicely with the bezel on the outside, the knurling, and it's just simple, timeless. Also notice, check out that date window. That would throw people off. Look, I've just realized that now. You're looking at the dial and then you see a 3 sitting at the base. Like, what's going on? So Chartan saying, I challenge myself to quickly read the time off every watch in your Zin video. That's a great challenge to have, by the way. I think it's important when it comes to legibility. Watches need to be legible at the end of the day. They need to be able to tell you the time at a glance, but upon further inspection, you get to see the smaller details, the minute details, you know? Okay. And Julian saying the rainbow one. Apparently that was their latest reissue, but there is a different, there's some original variants that they've also released. So have a closer look. Breitling Super Ocean 1957. There's some with just a beautiful integrated mesh bracelet, and it looks the business. I can't wait to show you if you haven't looked already. It's important to have watches that tell the time, for sure. And the next, this is a Bulliver, another reference, 96B183. That has a nice ring to it, I guess. Another precision chronograph, 1/1000. So I would imagine the chronograph just goes, this section goes haywire when the watch is running. Bulliver as a brand has a great history, the tuning fork, all of that story. I don't know if there are any more on the show. I don't think there are. But as a modern piece, Bulliver is another brand that I think we should look into. Huge case size. It does look like a monster. It looks like a 44, maybe a 42. The problem is, this is actually a good example of a watch that we can, I guess, I can tear apart a little bit. Presence and proportion. And if you've watched me long enough, you know what I'm going to say. When it comes to bezels and just how they work in tandem with dials, having a dial that fills up the entire space and a bezel to just be the lip, it's a bit problematic when you want to bring your scale of your watch down. The watch just ends up looking gigantic. So if it was, but the thing is, because it's such a complicated dial and it's very symmetrical too, you kind of want to have space for all the numerals running around it. So there's reason to the rhyme. There's rhyme to the reason with this piece. Okay, going to carry on through. We're doing well, ladies and gentlemen. We're doing really well, actually. Keeping up time well. So thank you for this. Send it in. Jay, thank you for sending in these Bullivers. Next, James. Oh, cool. Okay, awesome. Let's have a look at this. So first off, I don't understand the reason for the Heinz beans. Maybe it's an inside joke, but this is him and a friend of his. I hope it's not the same arm, unless you've been in the sun too much on the one side. He sent in two very peculiar pieces. So first we have a Black Bear 58. It's just timeless. People love it for many reasons. I think Dear Artifact summed it up so well, is that it's a watch that has been addressed. The reason why people love it so much is it's because it's no, come back. It's because it's a watch that everyone wanted at the end of the day. Okay. So the Black Bay 58, we love, we adore. It's a great piece, great size and scale. And then next to it, are you ready for this? A Bremont Supermarine. I have never seen this watch before. This looks to be an early rendition from the family. Bremont has a name, very divisive. People have their own opinions about the brand for sure. But the aesthetics, I do like the fact that the aesthetics pair off between the two in a way, in a different way. Get quite a good look over here in the two parts. And Giza asking me what's my favorite watch size. Good question. You know, I am not someone who likes to be flamboyant with watches that I wear. I much prefer a watch that is low-key, under the radar, kind of understated, which is why for my wrist, I mean, on a good day, I have a 7-inch wrist, 6 3/4. I prefer watches that are slightly undersized, sitting in, honestly, 38.5, 39 mils. That is my sweet spot size for sure. 36 mils I also think is great. It has its own place. Shaitan saying, ask a guy wearing a Navitimer for the time. He'll pull out his phone, yeah, for sure. So, okay. I'm just going to catch up with you in the comments. Sorry, everyone. I'm trying to a can of beans for social. Thanks, Brummy. So Tudor needs to reissue the Faithful Ranger, for sure. I mean, Dear Artifacts has been writing articles about Tudor creating a faithful reedition of the Ranger. And if you don't know what the Tudor Ranger is, it's essentially a 1016 Rolex that just has such a clean and symmetrical dial with a gorgeous arrow hand. It looks so nice. So this pairing off, I've never seen this Bremont before as a brand. I'm pretty sure I spoke about it recently. I can't remember. I don't know. It's another brand I need to look into. But I do find it quite entertaining seeing these two together with the Heinz dividing them both. It's great. Okay, so thank you for this, James. Next is James Conn. He might be in the chat, he might not. But he's playing tug of war with Woody the dog, wearing what is arguably the greatest, I'm going to say, from my side, I think the greatest Rolex Sea Dweller they ever did. And we are going to talk about that in a second, which I'm sure most of you know this piece. It's a reference, it's a 116600. I'm pretty sure it's a 6-digit. Okay. So yeah, gotta love Goldens. I mean, Goldens are my passion, my joy. And Woody, I think he's 8 years old. I think he told me. And I just love the expression. It's just, you know, let go, you bastard. So the Sea Dweller. This was the first foray into the whole ceramic Sea Dweller family. It was only around for a short amount of time, but it really is. I mean, if it was me and I was on the market for a Submariner right now, I shouldn't probably say this, but this is what I would be going for. Not everyone's going to pick it up. It's everything from the fully graduated bezel, the nose cyclops on the dial. Because it's 40 millimeters in size, it keeps its proportions. Another Rolex. There are a few Rolexes on the show, I must say. The last few weeks we haven't had that many, but this time we seem to have a few. This just does everything right for me. I think it's just subtle. It's subtle, but also you just know it can take a punch. The one detail that isn't spoken about often, notice the end link integration here. Rolex had a time with this model and the James Cameron Deep Sea where the end link didn't sit flush with the lugs. You notice how it juts out there, which is quite funny. It's a little bit of a manufacturing flaw, we could possibly say. But yeah, it's a great piece. It really is that transitional watch that really brought it to the modern era. I so wish this watch still existed. And this is I think this is one of the best shots of the show as well. The boy is just sitting there saying he wants to go out for a walk. And underneath, we've got the Sea Dweller looming up. It's great. And they call it the Sea Dweller 4K for sure, the 4000. I should also mention that as well. And it's because it's a 4,000 feet rating. So then the name that we all say in the hobby is SD 4K. Yeah, it's so nice. Great piece. It's great featuring the dogs as well. I would love to feature dogs on a show in the future, but I don't have any, so it's kind of sad. It's just lovely though. It's great. Also, so nice seeing a happy boy. Okay, next we have, so thank you for this, James. Next we have a collection from K9 Dweller. That's great. Next we have from Jerry, a collection. I think Jerry is based in Oklahoma, if I remember this right. Okay. And I didn't take much time. I didn't actually look at this collection at all. I just saved it. And just scrolling through, I picked it up again and had a look. What a crazy cool collection he has. I think we can all appreciate this. He has everything from Seamaster 300 ceramic, IWC Mark 18, Mark 18, I hope I'm getting that right, a first generation Explorer, Zenith, Tudor Black Bay with a steel bezel. We have a Zin U1. I mean, these two are just in tandem. That's fantastic. We've got an they call this an Aquaterra. I'm pretty sure this is one of the original Aquaterras. I think it's an automatic. We have a Nomos, much to Ron's happiness. We have a Tudor. They call it a Prince Date, two-tone, stunning. And we have a Speedmaster Reduced, which is a great watch for a wrist that is possibly it can't take. I must say the 42mm Speedmasters don't fit everyone very well, but we're going to kick the Nomos out of there. What a great set. I mean, you can see here that he is someone who enjoys dress, he enjoys sports, but he's much more focused on the sports, and he has the same kind of taste that I probably have when it comes to subtlety, when it comes to wearing a watch. What does Ron say? The guy has created an actual thoughtful collection as opposed to mindless consumption, for sure. And I think it's something very important that we all need to take home. I mean, the first watch that I look at these three. No, man. Magic Mouse, work with me. Yeah. I look at these three. They all share batons, numerals, balance, proportion, scale. It's fantastic, man. Just those three. Great. We move further along. Zenith, Tudor, Zin, Omega, another Tudor, another Omega, Nomos. Really nice, tasteful, simple collection. And I mean, as an everyday wearing watch that you can just pick out of the bin. I also like the idea that you can be someone who just wakes up in the morning, picks up any watch, wears it without a second thought. And this is, I think, a clear example of that kind of collection. Thank you for sending this in, Jerry. In future, if someone else would like to have their collection discussed briefly on the show, I think we can all agree that it's so nice seeing such a nice, such a huge selection of pieces in such a small space. We can really see them together as a set, you know? Now he needs a G-Shock, B-Dev. Yeah, great collection. Thank you for sending this in, Jerry. I think we all appreciated this. It's so I love looking at the top row. I think the top row to me it really stands out. Oh, stunning. Next from Jim. And if I'm not wrong, this is one of the best photos of the show, for sure. The quality of the image. Another Zin 556i, not A, I. Thanks to the Zin video from earlier in the week, we get another one on the show. Beautiful blue dial. It's great. What I would try to say about this watch is it has that mil-spec sort of element to it. Crown guards, sword hands, simple batons. I think the one problem with a watch like this is it's so symmetrical that you could possibly lose your sense of orientation on the dial at a glance. When you look at the watch, it's hard to differentiate between all the different batons and numerals. But as a package, I think representing the brand Zin, it's a good example. Made in Germany, it's the way. On the proper bracelet, yeah, looks great. Zin as a brand, we'll be talking about that a lot in future, I think. I is for indices. Thanks, B-Dev. Okay, gonna carry on through here with Joe. Okay, now Joe sent me in a long email. I think he explained his collection. I didn't save the email itself. I didn't save the write-up, but he sent in some great pieces that we'll be looking at now. So we just start with your basic Saxonia thin, you know, that's just the way it is. So this is a white gold Saxonia thin that we all love and enjoy. Lange, as Zane says. I made a video about Lunga recently, actually. What was it about? Highly recommend you watch it. It was a second take on the Odysseus and how, as a watch, I don't see it to be one that really sits in the family of Lunga yet. It hasn't really made an impact, really found its footing that heavily. It's a very divisive subject. I'm sure you'll enjoy the debate going on in the comments. But as far as Lungas go, and Russell's joining. Russell, thank you for joining. I've put your watch at the very end, I think, since I didn't save Zane's submission in time because I stopped reading emails about 3 hours ago. But I mean, Saxonia thin, what makes this watch so good? I think there's a few more shots. Let's check it out. Check it out. Here we go. So next to a gorgeous Longines pocket watch, he's got his, I mean, it's just class, hey? It's just class. This watch, I'm losing my voice again. I think this is going to be a continual thing on these shows. And Dimitri's saying that this is great. It definitely is a watch that is going to divide the community for a long time. What I try to preface and say that the Odysseus is a watch when I close my eyes. I just don't see it as a Lunga. As much as I see the Saxonia and the rest. I think he sent in another. I'll check this out. Even better. What makes this watch so great, I think it just speaks even more so than the Lunga 1, possibly, is because it's just so German in the way it's done. Both of these watches actually perfect examples. Thank you for sending these, Joe. Perfect examples of seeing Japanese styling next to German styling. The restraint, but the elegance in that restraint, that the hands, everything has been thoughtfully used and executed. Japanese, we have it more artisanal touched, the way the dial's been finished, the approach with the hands and the batons and the balance. It's great. I mean, what a pairing. So nice. This is what I love about these shows. Sometimes pieces just stick out. They just surprise you, the Axis powers. Bugenish, that's probably the best comment for the show. It's so good. So this piece as well, let's get into this a bit more. Beautiful silver dial. 37 millimeters, I think it measures, this size. I think they have a 40 mil and they have a 37 mil. Saxonia thin, it's all you need. I don't think he sent me the case back, which is sad. But together, I think what a pairing. This is great. Everyday wearer, throw on the Seiko. Weekends, throw on the Lunga. And I just love the fact that you're wearing a watch that no one knows what you're wearing. I think that's when you really get into the hobby, when you're closing in at the end. As a final watch, you wear something that someone asks you what it is, you just say, it's a German brand. You've never heard of it before. As Archie Luxury says, I think that's one of the coolest ways anyone can go about wearing watches, And there's mention about these two looking great together. You really get to see the language shared between the two, just how the batons are approached and the layouts. Stunning. I could sit on this for ages. Also from Joe, he sends in, here's Milgauss, GV. I can't actually believe how many Rolexes are on the show. And I think there's still more. But we have some good stuff. We still have some great stuff coming up. This Milgauss, Thomas Burnett, he is famously known for having this piece. It's a real character. And you can't imagine Rolex making this watch nowadays. You can't imagine their design department coming up with a piece like this. Because this was really back in the day when they were still a bit more playful. I don't think Tudor had been created just yet or revitalized. So Rolex was still playing around with quirky ideas. I guess the one watch we could compare this to is the modern Air King in a way. But the green glass, the blue, the orange, it's such a fun piece. As far as Rolex goes, I think this is quite a good example to have as a one and done Rolex in your collection, and best secondhand ever, as Eric says. Highly recommend, if you haven't followed my channel for a while, look up the Einstein Rolex. And I basically talk about the development of the Milgauss and look at 3 very distinct periods of how this watch developed over time and just why this watch is the way it is. I think I cracked the code as to why this watch has such a quirky nature to it, but also is a watch that's something very dressy. So just look up the Einstein Rolex. I'm sure you'll find it on Google. I look at the history and the past of the generational changes between these models. Milgauss is a cool piece, sure is. And last from Joe, we have a professional with a Headlight crystal. You can see that the crystal's seen some good wear over time. I was about to use this as the show's cover photo, actually, because I love would you call it a slow exposure? It's so nice seeing this blur effect that you get when the lighting. It's great. So I'm just going to leave this up. Can't go wrong with a speedy professional. BDev, you should do a brand-specific chat, anything but Rolex. For sure. We could definitely focus. I did want to do it like a more philosophical chat last week, but felt pretty down and pretty exhausted. Didn't want to do a show on Saturday last week. But maybe come next weekend, we can have a philosophical talk about a brand, for example. I tend to focus on Rolex because it's an area that gets a lot of people interested and possibly following the page. But what makes these shows so great is we see anything and everything, and that's what makes it just a joy. A shake, as Julian says. Hesselite, Helselite, yeah. Yeah, there's a bit of a divide between there. The real way of saying it is Hesselite, but I know one of our famous gurus does say Helselite a lot. But something about Polywatch, I think Hesselite needs to be celebrated with all of its scratches. And the bonus about having this crystal is that you literally Polywatch, put it on, brush it out, and you would never even know there was a scratch on the watch, which is amazing. Okay, going to carry on through. Thank you for sending these in, Joe. Joseph sends in his Pelagos Lume, and I think this is all he sent in. He might have sent me another shot of the watch, but I didn't save it, sadly. But we get to see the Pelagos in full form. Why more brands do not use Lume on their bezels, I do not know. But, I mean, look at it. So legible. Pelagos, spoken about often. It's a watch really epitomizes the Tudor name. When it comes to the snowflake, the layout of the dial, the simplicity, everything. This is a great piece. I think this might be a black variant that he sent me, and I probably didn't save his original photo of the watch. So why the snowflake hand? I think of all the watches, Buganish, the Pelagos is one that deserves the snowflake hand because light pollution, Brummy, it's so good. Because the Pelagos really is the snowflake. When you have the snowflake dial with the hand, I think it's fair that they pair off together. When you're dealing with a snowflake hand with rounded plots, different story. So when it comes to, when I think Tudor, I really kind of divided between the Pelagos and the Black Bay GMT. When I think of the Tudor brand, the top of my head, but the Pelagos is that modern transitional snowflake. I think the best thing that we'll get from a Tudor sub side of things from the family. But it's amazing. I mean, the Lume and this, it's just incredible. Many people just wear this piece. This is their one piece that they wear every day. It's all you need, really, you know. I'm going to carry on through from John. John sends in a crazy little collection of things. So it's a Straumann. That's the name of the watch. And it's on a Trub telephone. I love it. I mean, when do we ever see this kind of combination? And this watch is, I think, he said something like, the 70s called, they want their watch back, or something like that. And I thought that was a great caption. Something like the 70s called. And you just look at this watch and just know exactly where it was from. I think he's got a few more. Here we go, in the light. How amazing. I've just noticed this now. How amazing are those batons on the dial? Or those plots, whatever you want to call them. They're like proper steps. I have never seen that before. And just look at the case and the bracelet. I mean, it's just so 70s. It's just too much. How amazing is that dial? I've never seen such a height difference there, which probably means the crystal is so domed or boxed. The phone can give you splinters. Just great. Yeah, it's cool. So thank you for sending this in, John. It's nice seeing a bit of a difference. And the play on light. You sent me 3 of the same photo, but I had to just get it to get the different lighting effects on the dial and everything else. So clean. I just cannot believe. Look at the size of those plots. They are gigantic. They look to be like 5 millimeters or something. Amazing. Okay, and there's one more shot that I think he sent in. I said no light for this. I mean, we've seen a couple of these pieces already on the show. We've seen these 70s, 60s inspired. This is deep in the 70s, you know. But these cushion, semi-cushion style cases, this is very much a cushion case at this point. It's a box crystal, number station says. Thank you. I heard he is quite wooden. Yeah, that's a really cool piece. I really enjoy these quirks. That's what I love about these shows. We go from the insane to just the peculiar, and that's what makes it fun. Okay. Next from John, another shot from Joseph. I think we saw one of Joseph's watches earlier. It's another Rolex, but it's a real gem of a 1675. I just find it so strange that we find so many duplicates on a single show. I think we've had how many? 3, 4 1675s already? 1675s. I mean, as far as watches go, 1675s are really collectible, right? And we feature like 4 on one show. Nuts. And C, welcome to the show. Another Rolex, Zane says. And the patina, that's something I wanted to highlight here. Notice how dark this lume has gone on this model. And it's all original. You can see the hands, everything is clean and clear. I can't remember what Joseph said, what else he sent. Oh, he sent in the Pelagos. Okay, so he sent in the Pelagos and he sent in his distressed leather would you call it suede? What would you call it? Such a clean shot. You really get to appreciate watches when they are just so clean. Well, the photo being well taken. Also, notice the case. A clear example of a watch that's never been polished before. This looks to be quite the safe queen, actually. It looks stunning, mint. Okay, now we are going to Nubuck. I think Bugenish says that sounds about right. Okay, Mr. Grumpy, don't worry, don't go to bed yet. You're going to be seeing something great now. So Juan is probably in the chat right now. He sends above and beyond anyone else who sends me emails. I think he's 3 times the submitter than anyone else. 4, 5, 6, I don't know. He sends in so many pieces. I think I should ask Juan to back off a little bit with the pieces that he sends in, because the amount is just insane. But the watches that we'll be seeing, oh, he has some good pieces to share. And I forgot that we actually have another Lunga on the show. So Juan, we know as someone who collects modern, but also vintage. And Bugenish, I love that. I love that. Your comments are on fire. Some of you guys are just so good, you know. Sadly, I can't be that quippy because I'm like on the fly trying to think while talk. If I was in the chat, I think it would be a great conversation. So Juan sends in an 1815 platinum, 37 millimeters, and that is all she wrote, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, that's really all you need, you know. It's just beautiful. It's so clean and clear. And Thomas saying Richard Lunga. Now, Thomas, I think I can correct you there. Richard Lunga, we know as a watch, the only time that we ever saw Roman numerals on Lunga pieces was on the Richard Lunga pieces. So if you see a similar watch like this with Romans instead of numerals, Romans instead of Arabics, that's considered a Richard Lunga. This is like the modern interpretation. This falls into the 1815 line, the 1815 family. And it's a stunning shot. You'll see the watches now that Juan has. He's taken some amazing photos for us to enjoy. I mean, you get to see all the scratches, the details on the dial. Yeah, 1815, clean, clear, simple. And I think he sent in another shot on the hour. Oof. It's just great. I mean, it's such a privilege to be able to sit here and just scroll through some of the most amazing watches that that we can possibly ever think of buying for ourselves, you know, or seeing. And yeah, it's a platinum for sure. It's a platinum 1815. It's just gorgeous. I think as far as dress watches go, Lunga deserves so much respect and appreciation nowadays. I kind of love the fact that they're not as favored as brands like Vacheron and Patek and AP. They're still very much our sleepers until you look at the prices, and then you kind of understand why people don't buy them, because they just simply can't afford them. But yeah, 1815, absolute joy. We're not done yet though. We've still got some great stuff. Another set of Rolexes. Juan is in. Thank you, Juan. So yeah, we're going to enjoy some of the watches that you sent us. So he enjoys his Daytonas. He has both of the ceramic Daytonas. Nice to see them as a pair, actually. The reason why I saved this, because he sent in a lot of Daytona shots. The reason why I saved this is because we don't often see Daytonas as a set together. And seeing them side by side, the Panda effect, the black on black, really interesting. It's like a set of dueling pistols, you know? And as a collector, I think having both of them is quite something. I think of them as dueling pistols in a way when they're set up like this. Yin yang, as Rob Ward says, for sure. And as we go through, I'd like to actually know, let's get some chat interaction going on here. Comment B for black, comment P for panda, and let's see the divide. What would you rather go for? I'll start the list there. Let's see what you think. B for black, P for panda. Which would you choose over the other? Many pandas, looks like. Ooh, some Bs, some Ps. It's great because when I see these two watches together, lots of pandas. Can't choose. It's difficult, right? Oh, great. Lots of Bs. Nice. Again, I love the 50-50 split. That's what makes this great. What's nice about this pairing is that as a two-watch collection, and Zane says I would choose neither. It's wise. I mean, Zane, this is Rolex Daytonas are so below you. Let's be honest. So what is nice about this set, this pairing, is that the white dial is something more dressy, something you could wear possibly on weekends. Black dial is something you could rock day to day as something more understated. And he sends in a couple of shots of this watch on the wrist. We get to enjoy the black on black for a while. That's just great. I think synchronization of the hands, you're kidding me, right? Let's have a look. That's amazing. Wow. That's called being a stickler of an enthusiast. Who caught that? Orange hand. Fantastic. Resonance. So you notice, even to the second, these two watches are in sync with each other. That is incredible. Juan, was that just a happy accident? Was it, in fact, resonance shared between the two? Okay. Great seeing this loom on the dial. And it's very legible, I think, as a combination. Seeing the Daytona loom is something that I think is important, because often you just don't. And Zane said, any true gentleman knows you wear the Patek and your missus wears the Daytona. I mean, there's no arguing with that. I mean, that's one hell of a statement for sure. That's OCD, Boogenish. Darth Vader, life is too short. So yeah, just super clean. And there's a few more shots, some amazing shots that he took. I mean, I don't know what camera you use, Juan, but the resolution is incredible. And here we could possibly sit back and appreciate just how more legible this watch is compared to the originals. And I think we do have a original that came out just before this model. One thing that they did with this piece that made the difference was that they made sure that the subdials were not polished. They were actually matted, which means that you can actually read the time and the subdials in the direct sunlight, which is pretty good. It's definitely not the most legible watch in the world, but the black on black combination with those white highlights around the dial makes time telling a bit easier than the white dial. I think is a little bit different. It's a little bit harder to see in certain lights, but you get to appreciate it a bit more here. Again, it's definitely not the most legible watch in the world, and why they find it so important to do this to the dial, I do not know. It's like, I'll call it try hard, actually. This is like, if you want to see a watch that's trying to try hard, this is a try hard. You don't need cosmograph. You don't need all of the superlative chronometer stuff. Just keep it basic. 2 lines of text, you're done. I mean, as it is, look at the bezel, look at the minute tracker running around. It's a mash of stuff. I can see why they did it visually. It's to balance out the subdials and to keep those proportions there. I've shared my gripe with the way they've done these new movements and how the subdials have been off balance. But it's just so, I really appreciate being able to see a watch like this in natural lighting with, makes for good toilet reading. Boogenish, you're great. I love having you here. It's so nice seeing this watch in the natural light where you can actually focus in on all the details and enjoy it. Okay, but then I said in the beginning that Chris from Horology House says he's submitting pics of his Daytona. Yeah, that was a hell of a story here. Apparently he's back on YouTube now, so we can all give him some love. So as I was saying, we have some collectors that love vintage Seiko chronographs. Now, Juan loves vintage Hamiltons, and he has virtually every Hamilton under the sun. So now we can sit back and enjoy a huge range of pieces from the 30s, 40s, 50s, all the way. So this is a 1968 reissue. Is it a reissue? This looks like an original. This is an original chronomatic Hamilton from 1969, running a caliber 11 movement. You notice how the chronograph pushes are offset and the crown's the other way. So it's using a Hoyer caliber 11, I'd imagine. Left-hand drive, Rob Ward, sure. And this is an original. And I feel like Hamilton has just released this watch, which is why I thought it was a reissue. The way I could tell it's not is because we get to see a bit of degradation on the hands. We get to see the crystals a little bit scratched in places. What a forward-thinking watch, hey? When you sit back and look at where the window is set, the black window, and just how everything's placed and spaced out, it's a very forward-thinking watch of its time. It doesn't look to be one that's following the trend. I mean, in a way, we could say it is incorporating elements that we saw from Hoyer's in and around that time. Similar to other pieces, this kind of looks Speedmaster-ish, I guess, but it does look like quite a forward-thinking piece. Anyway, I'm going to carry on through. We've got so many more Hamiltons to look through. This is a okay, this is not a Hamilton. No, this is a Lancaster homage to a World War II deck watch. So as far as I know, this is like a reissue almost. And I think he did send me a photo of the deck watch. Yeah, there's a few more shots you can have a look at. So these were used by the Navy during the Second World War, early 1940s. We saw this as a common, I would imagine, an officer's watch for sure. Okay, I actually like that Lancaster. It's peculiar. I've never seen it before. This is another American-made, Pennsylvanian-made piece with the up-down, got the power reserve there, got the sub-seconds, nice and clean. And speaking of deck watches, at the very end, Russell, I know you're still here, we have quite the incredible deck watch we'll be seeing at the very end of the show. RGM is an awesome American brand. Can you explain what RGM is as a acronym? Wouldn't call it an initialism. What is RGM as a description of its name? Bezel reminds me of Hanhart for sure. This looks exactly like it. And there's a few more. I think, and this is the thing, you see, Juan is quite the collector, and he has an original Hamilton Lancaster deck watch clock, what you would call it, in its case. I mean, it's just great. I would love to be able to sit with Juan and look through the pieces that he has, because it's look at this. Where do we get to see this kind of stuff? So that's the idea. He has the piece that pays homage to the original deck watch, but then he also has the original deck watch. Now, this is from 1943, and let's have a read of this. Hamilton chronometer watch, model 22, protected with a safety setting device. Set the watch pressure, shielding, lock pin, blah, 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 blah. Cool, awesome. And look at that. I mean, there we go. We get an example of an original. Again, Juan loves Hamiltons, as we will now see. Thank you for sending these in, Juan. Next, we have a Pacer-matic from 1961. And this is an automatic. It's not an electronic. But we have this peculiar Ventura-style case. I'm pretty sure it has the same kind of styling. It's so funny seeing these pieces as a part of a collection, because you're not just seeing the modern stuff. I mean, we've just looked at modern Daytona's, a Lunga 1815, and then we jump into watches from the 60s. We have a few more from I think he's managed to send me mostly 60s pieces on the show. And let's have another look at another one. This is called a presentation watch. Let's get to the front. Hamilton automatic presentation watch. And I don't know the exact date when this was made. I would imagine around the 50s, roughly. And you can tell that because of the just peculiar Rococo lugs that they used in those days. And at the back, I think there's something quite special about this. This piece is rare. This is the only piece given to Herbert Albrecht, pretty sure that's how he was called back in the day, to a craftsman of product of his craft. So this, okay, I see. Okay, so we got 18 karat gold. Oh, this is amazing. So this is a watch that was presented to this man who obviously worked in the Hamilton factory for years, retired in 1955, and there's the watch. Amazing. I mean, what kind of history does this brand have? And I mean, I'm just scratching the surface here, It's just so cool. This guy is a real connoisseur for sure. I mean, I love it. There's so many collectors out there who only focus on things like Elgin and other mainly American-made brands. Hamilton, there's just so much to learn. We still got more though. This is a calendar prototype. Now that the electric, amazing piece as well. I think it also had a tuning fork set up so the way the movement worked. But you can just tell when you look at the dial, the case, the way you can really differentiate a prototype from a production model is that it's just so banal and basic. And let's see, it's a prototype from 1965. What else? That's it. That's all he gave me here. But really what these prototype watches were about was to essentially test the movements over everything else that never came out. Thank you, Juan. So this watch was never actually released. It was a prototype that disappeared. The idea behind these pieces were to essentially test movements. So case finishing meant nothing. Dials really didn't mean anything either. It was pretty much just to test how well the movement would work. Highly recommend you look up Talking Watches with Roger Smith. He has a few prototype watches that he shows on Hodinkie's video. And you notice that prototypes are just so plain. I think they were prototyping coaxial variants of their movements back in the day and also ETAs. Highly recommend you look at it as well. Yeah, superb. And Juan is giving us more details about the date was too complicated for production, but works fine. Amazing. Prototype watch. Another one, Hamilton Electric Clearview from 1965 on a blue strap. Looks like it's got a two-tone finish to it, two-tone bezel. I love that lightning bolt. How nice is that for a change? So it's an electric, meaning that it's quartz. No, it's not quartz. It uses, I'm going to learn this, I'm going to get this right. It's mechanical, but uses a battery as the power source. So it's kind of a blend of both, you know? But I love the use of this lightning bolt. It's the first thing I see, lining up with electric. Instead of having it, you know, jutting out on the hand itself as the counterbalance, nice change of pace. Yeah, it's just awesome. It's always something new to learn. I think I've featured at least 20 vintage Hamiltons from Juan on the show over the last couple of weeks. I would say the last month or so. I'm going to carry on. Clear view back. Here we go. So this is how it works. Fantastic. So this is the watch we've just looked at, the electric clear view. So you see that it actually uses a battery. The battery is there simply to, I think the battery almost acts as the mainspring, if I'm not wrong, and you still have your balance wheel and all of that. So it's such a peculiar movement that they were working with back in the day. Bolivar also had a similar feature with these pieces. You can see it's patented. Oh, it's just so nice. And these photos are just incredible. You know, feels like I'm giving a presentation on this watch. And I can see there's many comments in the chats. A few more. We have, this is cool. This is called Hamilton Electric Altair. I hope I got that right. But he loves, I think he also sent me photos of the watch and the original box and casing and everything that it came in. But I don't know what age this would be. I would imagine 50s-ish. But yeah, it's just so cool. I mean, look what they did with the straps back then. I think he sent me another shot. How bizarre is that? I mean, as a brand, doing that sort of stuff, we can understand why Juan likes Hamilton as a family. Because you can just see such a diverse selection of things with regards to strap changes, case forms and shapes, dial architecture, offset crowns, movements. Yeah, it's amazing. Serious, wow, love the enthusiasm, as James Conn says, for sure. I mean, he loves these pieces. It's great. I mean, we could watch these all the time. We could share more of these in the future, please. That was futuristic back then, for sure. You know, Jetsons era. This really does feel like a watch from the Jetsons, no? Those cases. If we're talking about time periods, what I've noticed is that the 1930s, with the Art Deco period, we started seeing these voluptuous forms. Then we saw the 40s, where everything got a bit more banal and basic because of the time. By the time we got to the 50s, we started seeing a resurgence of this deco styling. And I mean, a clear example, when I saw that presentation watch, this watch I would imagine is from 55. And we see another resurgence of deco-esque styling with these just super, the deco period can be summed up as streamlined. Streamlining was the approach, not only manufacturing, streamlining as in smooth process, but the idea of aerodynamics as a value used in all the pieces, in all products that were made at the time. So cars, you think of cars of the time period and aerofoils and everything else. So the element of streamlining we see incorporated into this piece from the 50s, clear resurgence of 30s inspirations that came around at the time. This is great. You can learn so much about design history and try, you know, that's what I hope to try and do on this page is incorporate that kind of stuff into the discussions. Okay. And then I think Doc Ron is still in the chat, but his loved and loathed Tangenta from Nomos. I can see why he likes this piece as well, because it really is Bauhaus before Bauhaus was a thing. You know, this dial layout was used on clocks all through the 30s, and it really does feel like a scaled down clock. Buganish. So yeah, Run the Shrink, there he is. So yeah, this watch to me, I feel is a little bit another, I mean, this kind of speaks to what Juan likes when it comes to the Hamilton pieces. He likes that vintage inspiration, those lugs, that aesthetic, the dial aesthetic, very much a modern incarnation of a 30s product. Yeah, it's great. Bauhaus is an amazing time period. You can learn a lot, but there's still more. Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. I got it before Nomos was a thing. Interesting. So this is probably one of the originals. I don't know how you could differentiate if there's something on the dial. It's great though. Fits your wrist nicely. But there's more from Juan. Don't leave yet. You're going to see a really nice piece in a second. The piece that was actually featured on the beginning of the show. What was it? The little presentation photo in my community post earlier. So this is the second generation Explorer. I think this is the only Explorer 1 we have on the show. I'm pretty sure. It's just unreal. Some weeks we get 5 original Explorers and other weeks none. We get 5 1675s, so it goes. It's a gorgeous watch. To each their own, since we're talking about Rolex again. That's just so good. Enjoying the chats. You guys are just going away, talking about jet age and 50s. That's great. It's nice that you're listening to me and the chat's actually catching up and slowing down, which is cool. So Juan, I mean, I've spoken about the 39mm Explorer so much. It is really a cool piece. And the photos, again, I have to just say, Juan, your photos are incredible. And you send me so many different samples of the photos for me to look at. It's hard to choose. Sometimes they're just, this kind of example where you get to see every single bit of texture on the dial finishing. We're not done yet though, because next, one of my favorites in his collection, Vacheron Overseas, featured this a lot on the show actually, because how can you not feature this piece? Vacheron Overseas with the interchangeable rubber strap, 3rd generation. And the more I look at this watch, the more I think to myself, this is such a great one and done piece in a collection. You can't have a collection of one watch, but I think to myself, you have a leather strap, rubber strap, bracelet, you can do anything and everything with it. And I look at this watch, and again, I'm drawn back to the Hamiltons that he's shown us already. Keeps those batons, the way the dial's been arranged, it feels like, and the way I addressed Vacheron in my car brand versus watch brand video is that Vacheron likes to keep to that vintage aesthetic. They really do appreciate the elegance of things. So you look at this dial and immediately you think patrimony. You think patrimony because of the batons at the quarters, that placement, the setting. But then it also has this almost chronometer, old school chronometer way the minute track has been arranged around the dial itself. And then we get to the more like 70s motifs when we get to the integrated case and the bezel. It's such a good, this shot is such a good example of this watch. It allows us to really see it where it is. Mention that if only the second hand hacked. Is that the case, Matthew? I didn't know this watch didn't hack. It's amazing. But then, of course, he sends us, even better, we get to see the back of the watch. And here is another example of just why this watch, I think, is such a sleeper in the family, in this scheme of blending the AP Royal Oak with a Patek Nautilus. It's one of those pieces that really flies under the radar. And with all of these combinations of different strap variations, I mean, they even channel the rubber out for you. It allows you to actually put your deployant on the back. And of course, he sends me a shot with the clasp. Really great clasp. This, the way they've managed to, incorporate this tang effect of the half of the Maltese cross inside. They could have done it a little bit more, I think. It would have been nice if they completed it fully somehow. But the twin trigger deployant, nice. I mean, this reminds you of a Tropic strap from back in the day with that texture to it. Vacheron Overseas, ladies and gentlemen. I made a video about it like 6 months ago, and I really think it's one that deserves a lot more attention. Just as a great all-rounder. Sports watch, dress watch, you can do anything in it, and no one knows what it is, which is even better. Junior, thank you for the super chat, brother. Thank you so much. And Juan says, doesn't hack. I just like that, but can't win them all. So you can't synchronize it with your Daytonas. I mean, that was amazing. Seeing it to the second, pretty cool. And I think that is all from Juan. He sent in a huge selection. I think we've looked through at least 20 photos that he sent to us. And I think he sent me about 40. So I've had to try and cut them down a little bit. So Juan, continue to do it, but you don't have to send so many. Yeah, I mean, you can choose like 5 or 6 next time if you want. But it's just great. I cannot complain about this kind of stuff. It is just unbelievable seeing everything in such high resolution and quality. Okay, thank you for this, Juan. we're moving on. And so far, we've been running the show for 2 hours and 4 minutes. 2 hours, 4 minutes, and 27 seconds. I can say that now because the watch I'm wearing is a proper chronometer. We're doing pretty good, and we still have a fair few to go. Great pieces still coming up. Next, we have Julian. And again, I think we should all congratulate Juan and say, great collection. Okay, from Julian, he sends in, I think this is a better shot here, Cartier Drive on a Jean Rousseau strap. I think this is the only, it's the only Cartier we have on the show. I'm going to hit the coffee a bit more. One per show, Junior. That's the sad thing, though. I feel like Juan has a basement just stacked with watches, and he just opens up box 2B and sends me 20 of them, It's great. So the Cartier Drive Jean Rousseau, I don't know much about this piece, has a very octagonal style case. Reminds me of the Santos in a way. It's almost like a transitional between the Santos and maybe the Roadster in the way it was approached. Large numerals, has a moon phase complication, automatic. I think he sent me another shot here. We get to see it on the Jean Rousseau strap. Cartier as a brand, I think, definitely deserves to be in its own camp, its own category. I love vintage Cartier pieces. There's something about the way they wear. I wore a vintage tank. I wore a white gold tank from something like 1928. And it was so heavy. The piece was like 30 mils. It was a tiny piece, but it was amazing. It was such a nice experience. And their history, the background, I mean, you just can't beat it, The tank is one that sticks to mind. The Cintre is another example that I really think is special. So yeah, the Cartier Drive, very, very unique piece. It kind of reminds me of the 90s in a way, the way it's being sized and scaled. It's just great. It's so interesting seeing the different flavor that people have and the different taste they have with pieces. And Ron's saying, I wouldn't wear Cartier, but I like their design language. It's not my favorite. And it's my favorite watch for women. I mean, it is great for women for sure. Absolutely. I really enjoy one thing that I appreciate, similar to JLC, Reverso, and those kinds of pieces, is that this brand has been able to stick, and Breguet and their design language, they've been able to stick to it for years and create a timeless watch. I mean, you could say this watch came from the 30s. Everyone would believe you. But this is a modern incarnation of the piece. Those Romans and the way the Romans, I mean, just that small little inkling of inspiration that the Romans conform to your case. That's literally all that makes the Cartier watch the way it is. You look at all the different models and the shapes and sizes of the cases, yes, they make a difference. But the way the numerals conform to these components, whether it's octagonal, rectangular, a square, and everything else. Yeah, great piece. Thank you for this, Julian. Nice seeing a Cartier on the show. And next from Carassus. Now we've got some cool pieces coming up now. So this is a Black Bay on his Rhodesian Ridgeback, sitting very regally. If any of you know Rhodesian Ridgebacks, they're amazing dogs. Coming out of South Africa, they're very popular. I'll tell you a bit of a story about the breed. But yeah, so basically, I'm just looking at the chat, talk about Cartier. From Diana to Muhammad Ali, for sure, Eric Bell. So Rhodesian Ridgebacks, bred initially, I'm not making this up, to protect game rangers, to protect anyone in the African bush, especially from lions. They were essentially, as you have dogs that defend owners from bears and everything else, these dogs were bred for lion protection. And call them brave, call them stupid, they will quite literally go after big cats if you're stuck in the open. It's amazing. I mean, they are incredible animals. I have a few friends. I mean, I used to hang out with friends who had 4 Ridgebacks. Amazing breed of dog and a true companion. If you have a dog that goes after lions for you, you know that you have a real winner. Now getting to the watch. This is a Black Bay. I can't see if this looks like a Harrods edition in this light. It looks kind of green on an olive strap. I love that the dog's just wearing it. I mean, the paw is actually like presenting in a way. He just knows. So cool. I think this is a Harrods. This might be a Harrods edition. Or it could just be a standard black bay on a olive drab strap. It does look pretty clean. Was it a Harrods exclusive? MHJ asks. It looks like one for sure. It looks green. Might be wrong there. But Carassus has a stunning collection that we're just about to look at. So this is one of his, I would imagine this is his daily wearer, his daily beater for sure. But then he has a trilogy. And what's a better shot? This is a goodie. I don't know why the mouse decides to do its own zoom. So he has quite the set next to, come on, man. Magic mouse doesn't always help me here. He has quite the set next to the Black Bay. And what I like is it's not your typical arrangement of the Holy Trinity. I think when it comes to being a collector, everyone wants the Holy Trinity brand, or should I say many in this space don't feel like fully accomplished unless they reach the Holy Trinity status. And the Holy Trinity basically is PP, AP, and VC, Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet, Vacheron, Constantin. I'm sure most of you know that if you've been a part of the watch community for a while. I try and like make it accessible for people, so I kind of under-explain these pieces. We've got a great set, so let's get to them all here. First off, the Nautilus. It's a 5711R. And what I love about Patek with the way they use rose gold is they incorporate just a beautiful tobacco brown dial to the piece. I think there's a better example. If we look at the trio here, this is more of him in the reflection of the glass, but you get a good idea. They have this beautiful tobacco finish to the way that the dial works. And it's subtle, but you can see it in off light. Of course, that's the movement. That's all I wanted to say about the piece. Let's get to the movement and have a good look. The movement itself, I mean, it's just gorgeous. And we get to see all the quality. I mean, look at that engraving. Oh, it is stunning. I love movement shots. You could do a whole show talking about movements, no? Watches and Dog Stream would be great. It would be. I'd love to feature my girls, but they're not with me anymore, which sucks. But I would have loved, if I had this show, if I was running a channel back then, I would have had both my girls wearing a piece. It would have been amazing. So yeah, for sure. Send me your dogs. I mean, I love dogs. Dogs to me, they are life. I adore them. Beautiful movement. And then next we're going to move to his offshore. And I think we've featured this watch on the show a couple of times before. It's one of the first ones, I think. That's what makes it special. It's reference 25721ST. It's one of, I think it came out early 90s, if I'm not wrong. And you can see that it doesn't look like your typical offshore. It actually looks quite, dare I say, pedestrian compared to what we see nowadays with just the ridiculous numerals and the crazy contrasts of elements on the bezel and everything else. I really like the fact that the dial is predominantly focused on the subdials instead of large batons. The batons are in the background. And the handset, everything just seems kind of natural. This watch feels like it's following more of a Royal Oak beat instead of being its own thing. And a 20-something-year-old designed the original overseas, and I think the whole idea was to make it more accessible for the younger marketplace. That was the story behind it, I think, if I remember right. But crazy looking piece. I like the fact that it's not just your typical Royal Oak, that it's a bit more beefy. And then we get to the VC. This is a Gen 1 overseas. And, you know, transitioning from the reference 222 back in the day, you can see that it has some of the motifs that we recognize on the Gen 3. You can see that they're starting to push the envelope with the bezel, the integrated bracelets even. And the dial is something that I think many people would probably divide opinion. That salmon dial looks amazing on the skin. As a piece that matches the skin tone, I mean, what a cool set. I really enjoy it when it's not just all stainless steel and it's not all just your typical, Royal Oak 15202. This is a 5711, but it is top of the pile when it comes to that, you know? And this salmon dial matching the skin tones, very understated. And there's a few things that I like about this piece, actually. The way they incorporate the Vacheron Constantin, the actual branding, how it follows, the Maltese cross at the center, clean, simple, clear. Let's pull the trio up again for everyone to have a look at. I think this is a better shot with less reflections. It's just great. Carassus, you send in some awesome stuff. That's what I love about these shows, is you just never know what you're going to get. It's full on Russian roulette. And I've been ignoring you in the chat, so let's catch up with all of you here. They're all just saying congratulations. It's a nice, a bolt arrangement as well. Yeah, it's cool. Fascinating set. So it's nice seeing this pairing. I'd imagine that the 5711 was the latest acquisition of the set. Great. Thank you for these, Carassus. And then we transition to Seiko Turtle, because that's just how this page works. So we have a Prospex. I've done a video on this piece. Oh, what's the reference? It has a 5 in it somewhere. I'm thinking of 6105 as the original. And this really was the next step. It looks like it's on a Tropic strap as well. That's fantastic. I need to get myself a Tropic strap. It's been begging me online to pick one up. So it has this Pepsi bezel layout. I did a video on this exact watch. I think I called it something like this, the Seiko Turtle. But it really is that next step transition. It's very much a tribute to the Willard that we will be seeing in the next week's show, actually, talking about reissue dive watches. Yeah, it's just great. I love the progression of how we just jump from like super high horology to suddenly Seiko Turtle. It's just great. It's fun. Okay, Chrono Craze is next. SRP, that's it. Thank you. Will Colon, I love your name. SRPA21, that's the one. That's it. The 6309 was the first turtle. Shaitan. I so wish, I think I should just like plaster my wall with, imagine having like a full-on tabloid of everything, every detail. I've got a big wall in front of me here, plastering it full of details and specs, and just being able to pull it up. It would be so good. So next from Chrono Craze, he sends in a Junghans, and let me try and get this right. It's called a Meister Telemeter Chronoscope. Amazing. I don't know if this feels like a reissue. It looks too clean to not be, but I just love the photos. I mean, you guys just always pull it out of thin air with some of these shots. Amazing. Junghans as a brand, many people love. It's real German, the way it's approached. And this feels like a piece that pays tribute to 1940s aesthetics. I would imagine this looks like quite a and the way we can actually tell, let's look at the bezel, base 1000, telemeter scale, yeah, for sure. So this is a 1940s reissue, basically. Most watches from the 40s had telemeter scales on their chronographs. It's amazing how you catch on to these little things. Telemeter being essentially that you can calculate the distance that a round travels from a ship, possibly, or off land. You see the smoke first, and then you hear the bang, and then you can basically determine the speed, or you can determine the distance of where the bullet's coming from. You can actually determine both. Great, nice use of balance. You can see hand-heart elements here, very Germanic in the way everything's been spaced and laid out. And I love the shot. I mean, what a gorgeous camera. Frank Heideck, I'm looking sideways at this, Braunschweig, I'm going to botch it so badly. Old school camera, a Rolly cord. I love the shot. And you get the right strap that fits this piece's aesthetic, you know. It just looks like something straight out of the 40s, a real officer's watch. And it's amazing, right? Oh, I love it. Just the composition. I'm looking on the small screen here as I'm following. You just get to see that time period right in front of you. It's great. Naval gunfire calculator, for sure. Reminds me of classic Longines, for sure. And I can't wait to look at French military pieces. I'm working on the write-up. It's a monster. And a lot of it addresses German watches as well, because they really did inspire a lot of French pieces in the 50s. So great story there. So Chrono Craze, thank you for sending this in. It's so nice seeing a bit of 40s history here too. Next from Lane, you want to see this, check this out. Vintage divers, that's what he called it, okay? Oh man, I love these. So where to start? This one is what grabs me at first. Sheffield. We had at the very beginning of the show, we had a watch called a Grand Prix, and it looks just the same as this. So the dial layout is very similar. And I tried to address that in the beginning, talking about how it reminded me of the planet Ocean in a way, you know. And this dial layout has been shared amongst so many brands. as you will see in next week's show, talking about reissue diver watches, this motif is everywhere. And we look at everything else. Okay, we don't just have divers, we have some chronographs. Le Jour, this is a brand that I'm sure will be mentioned in the French military video because it's very popular. Chrono Swiss, so cool. And of course, we have a Bolivar. Now look at this. What does this remind you of? Immediately you think Zodiac Seawolf. Surprisingly not. Bolivar, self-winding, 666, meaning that it's the devil diver. That's the saying. Oh, it's just so nice. And we have a Waltham. I would imagine, I mean, this is really 70s. Look at the way the dial is set, the numerals and batons around. So as a pairing, I mean, you just get to appreciate different time periods. You get to see some 50s elements. This is definitely kind of late 50s, early 60s. Later, this is right in that sweet spot. This watch really does hit that dive nirvana, you know, devil diver for sure. It's great. Sheffield All Sport, is that what it's called? Thank you, BDev. Oh, amazing. This piece just screams to me. I love reminds me of my 57. I mean, it's got the broad arrow. It's got large batons that follow around the dial. Everything's nice and symmetrical. Even has a Cyclops lens of sorts. Fully graduated bezel. It's great. So nice seeing this kind of variety. Reminds me of the Longines Legend Diver. Something I was about to mention, actually. The Skin Diver and the Legend Diver. Very similar aesthetic as well. Now we get to Mark. Oof, I kind of spoiled it there. Mark sends in a JLC Master Geographic. Probably the best. Oh, what do we say here for this piece? Honestly, it's the best bang per buck casual dress watch that you can possibly buy today. Master Geographic, meaning that it's a world timer. It has beautiful power reserve, date complication. The dial is just set for everything. Something about a dress watch that's able to utilize its dial properly. I think this is the only JLC we've had on the show, no? And black on black as well. It's just the tuxedo watch for sure. You wear this on your private jet, wherever you're going in the world. And I mean, the idea that you have all the world time set underneath here on the dial and that this hand is synchronized to the world time below. JLC, man, it's a brand that just doesn't get the love it deserves. Only the enthusiasts really know what they're looking at with these kinds of pieces. A bit too busy for me, Ant says. Yeah, for sure. I can understand that. I mean, some people, we've looked at the Lange Saxonia as an example during the show. Some people love, I mean, Ant, you have a Saxonia, so some people just love that plain simplicity. For me, when it comes to dress watches, I really enjoy asymmetry and the idea that the dials, you know, are utilized in a way in the space. I find open space on a dress watch a bit disappointing sometimes if it's not done properly. This, though, I mean, it's a workhorse. And if we just do a little flip, we get to enjoy the movement, of course. 1,000-hour master control. Now, these watches, these movements get tested to the extremes. Shaitan's saying, I reckon the only thing you can beat that JLC with for aesthetics is the Patek 5212. It's gorgeous. If Zane sent in the 5212 this week, would have been good to pair it up against. Rich Buddy asking, Patek Chrono or Lange Chrono? Ooh. Well, I would raise my hand and I'll reply in the comments what I would be going for any day of the week. If it was me. But yeah, it's just a gorgeous piece. So talking about the 1,000 hours, if I'm not wrong, these movements are actually cased in the watch while it's being tested. I think that's the story. And it gets thrown into all sorts of temperature variations, gets exposed to moisture and everything else. These movements really are tested to the limit. So it's amazing. Really nice looking piece. Let's have a look at the dial and everything else again. Clean, clear, tuxedo watch through and through. Thank you for this, Mark. Next from Matt. Oh, we have a treat. We have a treat coming up next. I think Matt might be in the chat. Don't know. He's known as 73 Math. I'm pretty sure. Oh, yes. So, ladies and gentlemen. No, come back. Come back. Getting drunken thumbs here. We get to see the first reissue A384 on the show. I have never seen one of these watches in the wild. Mainly seen them as renders and everything else. But if any brand managed to pull it out of nowhere and really make such a big, just a huge shock. Bringing out the A384 again, the original El Primero, in all of its, like 37 mil glory, with its old school case, beautiful font, panda dial, racing strap. I mean, come on. It is just, it's such a character. It's a watch to me that just keeps bringing me back for more. And I think it might have to do with the proportions on the scale. I see Ron saying that the case doesn't do it for you. I don't connect with this case design. I mean, that's one thing. It's definitely a watch of its time, for sure. That's what I kind of think makes it cool. The one immediately, without even looking at the dial, this indicates that it is a late 60s design, and then you look at the batons and everything else, it mirrors that. The one thing that if I had to buy this watch, I would definitely get it on the bracelet. Apparently, you can get an original bracelet made for this piece as well. And date windows mentioned as well. I mean, it's fantastic. Many people don't like the idea that the date is set in this position, kind of offset between the 4 and 5. But I think it's such a nice integration because it allows you to, you don't see it at a glance. You can read the time, you can read the dial easily. But then at the same time, you have this funky large size date that's it's kind of scaled in a peculiar way. This watch is a strap monster, I'm sure. It is of its time, yeah, for sure. Ladder bracelet, as Orange Hand says. You can get an original ladder bracelet. I can never say the name right, so maybe someone can mention it. It's Guy du Fre. I can never get it right. If someone can explain what the name of it is, but it's an original bracelet from back in the day that's been recreated. Yeah, stunning watch. Love the panda aesthetic. You can't go wrong with it, Gorgeous. So, going to carry on through, and congratulations, Matt. You did mention 73 MAF. You did mention that this is going to be with you for a while, and this is going to be you for a short time. You're not going to swap out on this watch. You're not going to pick up anything new. This is you for a while. Great. Okay, next we have Gay Frere. Thank you, Dimitris. Gay Frere, that's how you said. Perfect. So Gay Frere was a manufacturer of those bracelets back in the day. And apparently they're still around, or they have their own small factory that it's amazing. Okay, next from Matthew, and this is Matthew from New Zealand. Now this is, would you believe it, we have featured the only Greek micro brand watch on the show, and now we're reviewing a New Zealand-based micro brand watch called the Helm Vanuatu. And Matthew, if you're still here, can you tell us what Vanuatu means, please? I'd love to know. But now we see a watch that kind of looks like a Zin in a way. Notice the bracelet, very heavy duty, reminds me of very German in the way it's been styled actually. The hands set, batons are on the dial. It's really aggressive and heavy duty. Notice the loom as well. I mean, everything is loomed. Literally everything is loomed. I can't believe it. Minute marks everywhere, on the bezel, on the dial. Another killer. I mean, it's probably got a BGW9 loom to it. Let me pull the watch back up again. I don't know if Matthew is in the chat. I'm pretty sure. I mean, he's based in New Zealand, so I'd imagine it's like early hours of the morning. So the symmetry, I think, is quite unique about this piece. Reminds me of a few. It does definitely have that heavy-duty tool watch aesthetic behind it. The nice thing is that you can center your eye pretty easily on the dial with that teardrop. You call it almost like a pipette-styled triangle at the top. Clean, clear, concise. It looks very Germanic in the way it's been done. Also, really enjoy the knurling on the bezel. More bezels need coin edging. I say that because, in a way, if it's more subtle, you don't notice it immediately. The light doesn't hit it as harsh. It looks much more understated actually. That's great. Really cool piece. It's nice seeing another micro brand. And I don't know if you answered my question, Matthew. I don't know if you're still here. Vanuatu Island. Okay, thank you. That's fantastic. Looked like George Harrison. Guys are just having a go. Okay, so next we're carrying on here. Michael sends in a Seamaster from 1956. And it's just a stunning, simple, basic piece from that time period. And the way you can kind of tell that this is a 56 piece, apart from the very Rococo styled 30s elements on the dial, is the lug integration. These chips that were taken out the lugs. I feel like this was really what was the transitional part between the 50s and the 60s. Once we got into the 60s, I highlight that a lot in the, what's the video? The new Amiga video that I just put out about the, name slips my mind now, Globemaster. I look through 50s, 60s, and 70s era pieces and how the cases changed over time. And you can see a clear distinction between the 50s and the 60s and just how it became simpler, more basic. Great looking piece though. I mean, from 1956, the watch still looks in such good condition. It's amazing, right? I mean, over 60 years old, nice and clean. OHM watch. I'd like to know a bit more about that if you'd like to tell us, iDguy. Yeah, fantastic. Vanuatu is in Fiji, worm germ. I'm from South Africa, the other end of the world, and as it is, a guy is always learning. So we're going to carry on through. Thank you for sending in this Seamaster, Michael. Next from Nectar or Nectar. How is this? Now, we've had a lot of Rolexes on the show, for sure. This is a turnograph, reference 1625 from 1962. And what I find interesting about this watch, when I look at it, I immediately, when I see these hands, these, what would you call them, almost alpha styled hands, alpha leaf hands, reminds me of Rolexes from the 50s. So how do you manage to get those kinds of hands on a 60s era piece? I don't know. But the turnograph, I mean, it's an amazing watch. The bezel is what really defined it. This gorgeous machining around the sides and the numerals set on the inside. It's so clear. I feel like it shares a very similar history to the Air King in that it was made for RAF pilots, if I'm not wrong. So maybe someone can clarify that a bit more. But the dial has definitely seen some aging, a bit of custardizing over time. Will Colon, that's how you know iDguy does many videos. He forgets his own content for sure. I mean, I can't keep track of half the stuff I do. It's difficult to like keep up and just remembering the different pieces, that's funny though, right? Gorgeous piece. It's so nice seeing a turnograph in its natural form. I mean, this is really the defining era. It's sad that this watch never really got a footing after this time. I mean, the modern turnographs, they're not popular in the slightest, but I think the combination of having this date just element, but also a bezel that you can use functionally every day. They call it the Thunderbird, right? Orange hand. I'm wondering, I mean, I see Blue Shirt, sorry, Rich Buddy saying aftermarket hands. I'm looking at the hands, but then I also look at the dial and I see these like shark teeth indices. Feels like it's period correct, but I find it amazing that these hands are on this watch in 62. I guess back in the day, they were just throwing everything together. There was no rhyme or reason. And other elements. I just mentioned coin edging. How nice does coin edging look on a watch like this, where it's subtle, you see it, but it's out of the way. It's not in your face. I think it's just great. And Jimmy Split is joining us. Welcome, Jimmy. For those of you who don't know, Jimmy has a channel. Everyone who's watching now, go and follow his channel because he collects everything from modern to vintage. He's another one of our very popular collectors who I'd love to review some of his watches actually on the show because he has such a great selection. I never miss a beat. I watch every one of Jimmy's videos. Bugenish, you're both Aussies, so yeah, it's great. At least I still have my voice. I think talking about last week, that was awkward. Okay, jumping from a Rolex to an Omega, and it's a very special Omega. It's one of my favorites. From Orange Hand, who's in the chat. I think he was there a second ago. There he is. This is an original Mark II Speedmaster racing dial. And we know him as Orange Hand because he just loves pieces with 70s inspired aesthetics. And that really was orange. Orange was the thing. And I mean, just look at the condition of this piece. It's amazing. I think he's also got it on the wrist. Yes, he does. Awesome. Okay, let's have a look at this a bit more. So how can we tell that this is a original and not a reissue very quickly? Simple. First thing, I learned this, made a video about the Mark II, loved it. Talks about the NASA Alaska project and everything there. It was a great story. Speedmaster Mark II. The one thing you can tell is that the hand, the second hand doesn't have a loom plot on it. That's one point. You'll notice that the new generations have coaxial printed on the dial and also have a date complication set at the base. But really, the racing dial is what has defined this watch so much. There's lots of little elements that made this watch unique, and the reissue hasn't really grabbed it as well. But it's just such an exciting watch. I think it's one that's never caught on. It never was popular. I think of all the Mark IIs, the racing dial is definitely the most popular in the line. And the way I spoke about this watch when discussing the history of this piece, it's almost like a fully streamlined professional, putting the bezel inside the case. That way it doesn't get hung up on clothing, doesn't get damaged. It feels like a flight approved watch at this stage. Big enough, legible to read, but the case itself, because it doesn't have any adornment on it, doesn't have any fluting or any kind of like turned in lugs that we expect to see, the case allows for you to focus your attention on the dial, which is really what makes it an instrument, minty, as Eric says. I mean, Eric Bell, gorgeous, gorgeous watch, lovely combination, so nice. I mean, we've already had a Speedmaster Professional, a couple of them, and now we have Mark II. A hidden gem in the family, in my opinion. Okay, moving on. Thank you for this orange hand. Always great. You could send this in every week and I would feature it for sure. Pat sends in, let's see, he sent in 2 shots. Oris Diver 65 silver dial on a Tropic strap. I think this is how they come standard as well. What a cool looking watch. Now, amazing coincidence, but next week's video about reissue dive watches, I mentioned the Oris 65 and highlighted as one of the pieces that is one of the best reissue pieces out there nowadays. And this one is more of a later incarnation. The originals had great numerals on the dial, but I must say the silver dial combination with the black bezel, the black strap, it's so nice and clean. And then of course you've got this gorgeous domed sapphire crystal. I'd imagine it has to be sapphire. It just adds that extra effect. I think of all the watches in the Oris line, I find the 65 to be one that I adore the most, partly because I think it stays very true to its roots. It's scaled very nicely. It's not brash, it's not heavy, it's super thin. Everything has been done correctly, like the bezel, the fully graduated bezel insert, the knurling around the bezel itself. The dial, I much prefer the very original dial, but I'd imagine that this is also a replication of an original. Notice how the date window is in a strange position, how it has this peculiar cut to it. It's just great. I think as an overall package, you can't really do much worse or better. I don't know. I've been running the show for like 2.5 hours. It's a gorgeous piece. And this photo really does emphasize, we get to see just how these elements play off each other. Silver dial, stainless case, black bezel, black strap, nice combo. So Tanku says 7:35 here in Malaya. Gotta go, everybody. Thank you for joining. Fauzi, I don't know how you do it. All of you guys around the world, the fact that you can actually join into these shows. Brummy saying, would I have a bronze one? Not on your life. I was very pedestrian with the bronze video. I mean, I could have ripped it to pieces, really. I didn't want to anger anyone as much as possible. I try to be very on the fence, but bronze as a material on a watch, I just do not understand. So Oris, I don't know why Oris incorporates bronze into their pieces. I guess you get the nice two-tone aesthetic. It looks like matte rose gold, but give me stainless steel any day. So Zane says only 10 hours to go until the 12-hour mark. Yeah, for sure. Amazingly, we're doing well. We'll probably be closing off at the 3-hour point on the dot, which is pretty impressive. Now, Philip sends in, oh my goodness, another Rolex. I can't believe it. We've had so many Rolexes on the show. And I think we have a few more too. This is an important one. This is his dad's Air King from 1969. And I actually saved, no, I didn't. Oh, damn, did I? I did. Okay, I saved his caption that he gave behind this. Okay. My name is Philip from Canada. I'm just going to try and scroll through quick. 1969 Air King date. His dad bought it, 1969 Air King date for $500 when he immigrated to Canada back in 1970. He wore it for many years while waitering and cooking at restaurants, making ends meet. He wore it until the oyster bracelet broke. He kept it with him and left it in his drawer. One day when I was 10 years, I hope this photo's okay. Let me try and get a better photo. I don't know. Is this clear? That's good. It's pretty decent. One day when I was 10 years old, I found his watch in the drawer and asked him about it, and he told me his story. I was fascinated with the mechanical watch. Which I had never seen before. I wore digital watches and quartz watches as a child. That day he gave me his watch and told me to fix it one day and send it in for a service when I earned enough money. That's amazing. This is so cool. I mean, I just copied and pasted the caption. I didn't read it fully. This is so cool. I told him I would. 20 years later, I got married, and my father-in-law offered to buy me a Rolex watch. I graciously declined and asked him if he could help me send my father's Air King date for service at the Rolex Service Center. Oh, I mean, it's so cool, right? I love this watch because it's very meaningful to me from my dad. There we go. I mean, that's the way to end off a show, you know? That's so good. Really, it's so touching. 1969 Air King date, fully refurbished, back on the wrist, and talk about a sentimental piece. We're not talking Submariners, GMTs. We're talking just a plain and basic, everyday wearing Air King. Great story. Graciously declined a Rolex from father-in-law. I mean, that says something. That's cool. I like that. I mean, I would just say, get me an Omega or something else. I would make sure that this be the only Rolex that I own, because I think, as far as stories go, it's just fantastic. What a cool background. Thank you for this, Philip. It really does make something special. I love these stories. I mean, that's what watches are about at the end of the day, and why they are such amazing items. Why I love doing this is because they are things that we wear every day. They are products that are made to last forever. And go out of your way to try and find that nowadays. You just won't. I think value and price and everything factored in, it's amazing. They're such cool objects. Definitely a keeper after that story, for sure. Well, thank you for this, Philip. Gotta love an Air King. And you don't see Air King dates very often either. I mean, I can honestly say I've never seen this script before on the dial. Fascinating. Oh, it's cool. Air King, again, linked to the RAF back in the day. Amazing. Thank you, Philip. Next to Randy with a Seiko Presage. We're going from Rolexes to Seiko. Another brand, another watch, should I say, that is a cult favorite on this platform. People love. They adore it because of its price point, because it's an automatic dress watch, which is peculiar because you find that you can't pick up automatic dress watches for decent prices nowadays. And I think Seiko has managed to hit that very well. Orient and Seiko together. They call it the cocktail time. Thank you. Did I get it? I did get it. I did call it Presage. Okay, cool. So they call it the cocktail time. Seiko has managed to address, and Orient have managed to address this need for a automatic dress watch well, offering it for a very reasonable price, which I think is great. And I mean, Seiko with their dials and their hands, this is so typical of how they arrange their pieces. We've seen a Grand Seiko already today, very similar aesthetic. Thank you for this, Randy. And next to it, we have Reed, who sends in his Alpinist. And Reed wears this watch all the time by the looks of it. I mean, we featured it a few times before. And the Alpinist is a strange beast. I love talking about it. I don't know how best to address. I just don't understand it fully. Gold on green, nice idea, nice combination. You do get the idea of a pine tree, you know, pine trees and mountains. The movement and the way the watch is arranged also gives that aesthetic off, but it feels like a dress piece. And let's see, Rich Buddy says, makes you realize that if you have a large watch box, not any one watch will ever get to be that special. I mean, that's it. I mean, you nailed it on, you hit it on the head there, Rich. You really only need one watch, and that watch sees you through life and it tells all the stories. Being able to give that to your family and say, you know, this has been me. It's amazing. And there's so much more value you gain, you attain out of that kind of possession. You treat it with love and care, and you know that it's just seen the world. IDguy is good at being diplomatic with ugly watches. Ron, it's come from lots of practice, I can tell you. The way I began the channel and started writing about stuff, I just used to be terrible. The thing is, with South Africans, we are very opinionated by nature. I guess that's just how we're brought up. And sometimes our opinions can, similar to, I would say, the reason why South Africans and Americans get along so well is that we both are very opinionated people, which is great. I mean, how can you live a life not being opinionated about things. But I have a ship to run here, so I have to be kind of nice. But yeah, this watch I just don't get, really. I see where they're going with the classic motifs and the aesthetics with the handset and the numerals. But then I find it, with a name like Alpinist, I want it to be a more functional piece. The video that I did on the Alpinist, there's a few amazing references that you should look up that are featured in the video. I did a full history overview of it from the 40s when it was introduced all the way up until now. So yeah, there's some great references in the Alpinist line, but this is the one that is spoken about the most and is the fan favorite. Hey, to each their own. That's what makes them special. And the 2020 Alpinist, as Tom says, there are some great ones. That black dial variant looks so good. Have a look. If you're on Google now, have a look at they call it the 2019 or 2020 version. Black dial, looks the business. Thank you for this read. Next, we're jumping back to vintage pieces from Richard. Richard sends in a Smith's Everest, a real Smith's Everest. I would imagine this watch in and around the late 50s, early 60s, possibly, maybe. Looking at the lugs, kind of looks like a 50s era. This could even be like 55, actually. This is a genuine Smith's Everest with all of the trimmings. So it's nice to see an actual Everest on display. 18 joules, shockproof, manual wind. It's all you need, right, to get you going. OCD failure, yeah, for sure, John. The Alpinist is a peculiar beast. And John's saying it'll be interesting to see what the next few months will bring from Swiss watch brands. For sure. I mean, if one thing, it could be such a great improvement because, for one thing, it'll make brands reduce pumping out rubbish and think more about what people want. It's one thing I don't understand. A lot of watch companies tend to just push out pieces and not really do the market research, identify what the community wants and what makes a great piece that people would want to own. And you do that, you get that formula right, guess what? You'll be making sales for days. So this could be a time when Swiss companies can actually hone in on what they know makes their stuff sell and produce brilliant watches that people want. I mean, imagine getting rid of 12 pieces and bringing out one fantastic watch, and you end up making the sale up of all the 12 pieces, you end up making the same sales with one watch. That's how I think on the business front. Save money, produce amazing stuff. Great looking watch. I mean, stunning. We have some more. Also from Richard, this is a Gerard. So he sent me a trifecta of pieces from the same time period. And they're all English made. They're all in and around the same time. I would imagine 50s era. This reminds me immediately of Vacherons from back in the day. You see a similar aesthetic, a large onion crown style of sorts. Another sub-seconds. And I feel like this watch is probably using the exact same movement, since it has, I think they all fall under the Smith's name, actually, from back in the day. Smith's was supplying movements to all of these brands when Smith's was really in its heyday, after its Everest summit and all of that. And then next, this is the real winner, J.W. Benson. Again, under the same banner of the Smith's brand. But look at the way the dial has been arranged. We've got hobnails and we've got these sharp batons, 18 joules. I can imagine every single one of these models have the same movement set up. Look at that script. That is just so nice and clean. Why more brands can't get a bit more stylized with their use of cursive on their dials? Yeah, it's just great. So nice seeing vintage dress pieces. Ooh, the next watch coming up is going to be great. You're going to enjoy this. Yeah. Let's see. Zane saying, I got to get the Black Bay 58. I really like it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, for sure. It's a watch that many people are gravitating towards. It's amazing how it's gained this cult status at this point. And there's mention about, it feels, that's a subtle IWC dig, I bet, Buganish. It does feel like it, right? It does have that, just looking at it at a glance, generally it does look like an IWC from that time period as well, the 60s era. I just love it. Such a nice combination. Next, I think Rob is in the chat. If it is Rob Ward, this is your IWC. It'll be up in a second. And it's a real gem. Are we ready? So his email caption basically said, you talked me into it. And I did a video about the the Ocean, it's the Ocean 2000, right? The IWC Porsche design Ocean 2000. We get to see one in the flesh, and it is such a great example. This is beautiful. This, to me, I feel like it's one of the industrial design icons of the 80s. The way everything has been integrated together, you can see that a design department was set the task to make this watch because of just how everything has been assembled. The bezel is so clean and clear. The bracelet is a work of art. The dial is just pure Germanic styling. It's beautiful. And 80s, the way I say 80s is because we have more squared off plots, you know? Ron saying, I talked you into liking this watch. Oh, Rob, it's not yours. Okay, so Rob, whoever the Rob was who sent this in, thank you. But there are just so many things to like about it. But there are also things to dislike. Immediately, when I said it, a design department has thought about this piece, for sure. The way the bracelet integration works, the way the bezel seems to be corresponding with the bracelet, sure. The offset crown, I mean, it's all great. It all feels very Germanic, feels very well designed. But then it's a dive watch. And the problem with a dive watch is that it doesn't have any numerals on the bezel. So it's quite pointless. So that's when a design department, and I know this from experience, designers love to reduce for the sake of reduction. You know, the idea to just cut back to the purest of pure. But this is when a manager needs to step in and say, no, you're kind of making the watch. The people who made this probably weren't divers for that reason. You can tell that they didn't do enough user testing to say, hey, Mr. Diver, can you actually use this watch in the water? Don't know. This is titanium, I'm pretty sure, Will. I'm pretty sure this is a titanium piece. It's not galvanized. So, I mean, it's a beast. It really is. I mean, just look at that dial, the cleanness, the symmetry, the cleanness, the symmetry, clearly been going for 3 hours at this point. Red highlights on the second hand, date window being matted out and hiding in the background. This is tritium dial faded, big exposed minute marks that run around it. The handset, easy to read. So when it comes to streamlining, like real design department 80s streamlining, this is a superb example. Reminds me of the Moser for sure. So yeah, great history behind this watch as well. I'm pretty sure it's been used by Navy and Special Forces back in the day. IWC and brands like Zinn, they make watches for forces, and it's pretty cool. So yeah, spoken about this watch enough. Also, eerily reminiscent of a 1655 Explorer 2, which I love so much. Okay, so going to carry on here. We get another Rolex. And Rob, thank you for sending in that gorgeous piece. Very seldom do we see that IWC. So this is I'm hoping I'm getting this right. It's a 116520. This is basically the pre-ceramic transitional model as we were going across. And you notice the few details that I mentioned. This is probably a later version because the subdials look quite polished and not so matted. I don't know. Well, do they look quite matte? It's difficult to tell. But the bezel, it's a stainless steel bezel. So this is pretty much the watch that ended that began the next step of the craze. We know it. Just brought one of these today. Love it. Lee, is that so? You just bought one of these pieces. There's a few people on this platform. I know Mark P also picked up one of these recently. And yeah, he loves it. I mean, the Daytona as a watch, I've always thought of it as a trophy. I think that's how it should be represented. It doesn't have to have the best history. I mean, honestly, I think the Speedmaster has a much cooler history than the Daytona, really. But when it comes to its image as a trophy, I don't think it can get much better than a Daytona. And I love the subtlety of the watch. I think in the way it's sized and scaled on the wrist, it's very special. It's a special piece to wear. It's cool for sure. Are the hands like the Zenith Defy? It looks like it, right? I mean, it does look clearly like it. They did a few minor improvements with this model as they transitioned to the ceramic pieces. We've already looked at an exact same watch as this earlier on in the show. So thank you for this, Ryan. Always great seeing a Daytona. Nice sharing. And we have another from Sam. We have a Black Bay 41, which we don't see very often on Erica's original paracord strap. So another Black Bay 58 is the darling. Everyone loves it, but we don't often see the 41s anymore. this being an in-house movement at this point, I'm pretty sure. It doesn't have a smiling self-winding, so it's not an ETA. And Mark is in the chat. Welcome. Yeah, you still love it. I mean, you should just wear it every day, Mark. It's an amazing piece. So yeah, we've had a look at a few of these black bears already, and I love the fact that it's adored by many. It really sits in that sweet spot. What makes it such a great piece is that many people can enjoy it because it's both affordable, wearable, usable, and I think you'll enjoy the car pairing that I gave this in that watch brand versus car brand video that you'll see. It's a goodie. Okay, thank you for this, Sam. Thomas Burnett. Now, I don't know if he's still in the chat, but he's been sent a prototype by our very own James, founder Times Capital, and the watch is called Aragon. I don't know much about the brand. You might have to tell us a bit more about it, Thomas, if you're in the chat, but of course, I have to feature some of the watches that you sent me. That's just great. I mean, it's a peculiar piece for sure. I don't know anything about the name itself, but if you're still in the chat, it would be nice to hear from you. Anyway, talking about AC3 and everything else. Yeah, but Bowser is an amazing human being. I mean, some of his remarks, the Buganish, Bowser, you guys roll so well together. I think it just makes it so much more enjoyable for me. Anyway, so this piece, I mean, we get to see some highlights. I also love the fact he's got a rose in the background. This is our very own Thomas Burnett, a micro brand based in Florida. Thank you, Thomas, for that. We get right in. This looks almost like an atom, the way this counterbalances, and this would loom in the dark, of course. But the next piece that's coming up from Thomas, this is one of his pride and joy pieces. Here's little baby Ploprof. Baby Ploprof. Now, I mean, he picked this up, I think, last year, roundabout, and he was emailing me about picking up the watch and what he should do, and he was thinking about it and everything. I mean, it's such a gem. It's really a 70s piece through all the way. Clean, clear, concise. And it looks like it borrows similar aesthetics that we saw from the Speedmaster Mark II earlier in the show. Orange hand for the minutes, shark mesh bracelet. I mean, it's just so clean. It feels like such a mil-spec watch, actually, you know? And everyone's saying free Bowser. I'd actually like to know a bit of context behind that. I'm sure he was banned from a channel or something. I don't know. I haven't been following any shows recently. I've been so bad. Eric Bell's saying, has it been redialed? Let him know, Thomas. I think it might have been. I think it has been redialed and it's had new hands set on it. But he did send it into Amiga to get serviced, I think, if I'm not wrong here. Yeah, but it's gorgeous. I mean, it really is 70s all the way. Orange hand, full bezel, nicely set dial, crown guards. And being a baby Ploprof, the average person can actually wear it. It's not a monster, you know? It's great. Okay. Going to carry on through here. Tetley, last few people of the show. We're about to hit the 3-hour mark, which is pretty great. Tetley sends in a CWC G10 from 1980. Now, we all love our British MOD mil-spec pieces. This is kind of the, I don't know how you could say it. It's almost like the falling off point for watches of the time when quartz became popular all of a sudden. Actually, no, I lie. Once we transitioned from CWC to, what was next, Pulsar, then we started getting, it's pronounced Boozer. Thank you, Tom Austin. Boozer. So this piece has a Swiss quartz movement, which was great. And as far as the case styling, everything changed once we hit the 80s. We didn't see the cushion case anymore. We started seeing these funky curved in lugs. But you can still pick them up today. I mean, this watch is literally, you can find recreations of this being an original from the 80s. It has all the field watch motifs that we know and love. The way the dial is arranged and set out, it's nicely spaced. Yeah, it's cool. Also enjoy the strap and the integration there. But this was, I would say, the beginning of the downward spiral for military-issued watches for the British Armed Forces. We moved to Pulsar, and then all of a sudden we start getting Japanese quartz movements, which were cheaper, less reliable. Swiss quartz movements were still fantastic. But anyway, great story, great background. IWC, International Watch Company. Thanks, Truth Fears. Yeah, that's great. Central Watch Company. Are you sure it's not Cabot Watch Company? Truth is, I've always thought it was Cabot, but maybe I'm wrong there. I'm pretty sure Cabot was the guy who came up with the brand. I don't know. There's so much history behind these pieces. It's so difficult to keep track. Anyway, I'm going to carry on through. Thank you for this, Tetley. Great seeing a good field watch that's been used and actually lived with, you know. Tillman. Now, Tillman, we know as someone who wears a Lunga 1. He has sent in his original Lunga 1 from 1995, only one of like 500 made. But this time around, he thought, you know, let's go gold, but with a Casio. Why not? So you got to give the man respect. You know, he rocks a Casio, but then also has a true original Lunga 1, like the first of the first that we featured on the show before in the past. Yeah, it's great. They call this the C3PO, really? Eric Bell? That is so funny. I can see why. I mean, it's pretty hilarious. Yeah, so I mean, we're slowly but surely winding down, but don't worry, we get a little bit more to end the show off as we're moving. So thank you for this, Tillman. Next from Tran. Now, sadly, the picture resolution didn't come out as well as I would have liked, but we get to see quite a selection of pieces here. The top left, we have a Juan Pablo Montoya Royal Oak. On the right, we have a Panda Daytona. We have another offshore on a rubber strap. Can you believe? We have what is this? It's a Patek, and it's a twin calendar. Sorry about the quality. The resolution is not the best, but it's a double calendar with a sub-seconds. You might want to help me with a reference there if Zane is still in the chat. There, 5726. Thank you for that, Zane. Then we have our Batgirl. I still think of it as a Batman. And then we have a gorgeous Lunga. This feels like I cannot... It's a regulator almost. What is the name? What do they call it? It's a regulator watch. Again, sorry for the quality. It might have been me who botched that. But it's such a good collection of pieces because we get to see representation from, again, Holy Trinity. We got the AP, we've got a Patek, we've got a VC, we've got a Lunga, and we've got two Rolexes, some of the best, some of the most sought after Rolexes out there. It's a really nice set, must say. I find it such a privilege doing this all the time because you just never know what you're going to get, and the watches that come out of the blue, they always surprise you. I can't believe that we've had two Vacheron overseas pieces on rubber straps featured, two Panda Daytonas. We've had a Batman already. This Lunga, I'd really like to know, is it an 1815? I feel like it's an 1815 like regulator or something else. I don't know. And Mark, no, it's not Zane's collection. This belongs to Tran. Tran is another gent who's been supplying pieces. And the last, he did send me the wrist shot that he's been wearing, which is his Juan Pablo. Now, he said, I had to correct him, he said Juan Carlos Montoya, but it's Juan Pablo Montoya, Formula One. Now, this is quite a peculiar piece because, as we know, it's a racing driver's inspired watch, and they did all sorts of peculiar things like carbon fiber inserts here and there. They try to make the pushes look almost like pedals. I mean, AP has just gone ballistic with the way they've done their watches over time. And again, earlier on, we looked at a very original offshore, and we see just how it's changed over the years. It's a peculiar piece for sure. We have different colors representing the flag, and yeah, it's just clean, pretty heavy duty, pretty hardcore. The next step is when we get to like the AP Survivor, you know. Okay. So now we're getting to the final showing of the show, and we always try and save one of the best for last. Let's just get back to this collection again. Again, apologies for the resolution. Might have been me saving them, but we get a nice set all in all. It's really nice and clean. Last but not least, from Russell, if he's still in the chat, always save you for last, you or Zane. This is a Ulysses Nardon, and they call it the Marine Chronometer. Now, what makes this watch special? This might not be up everyone's alley, but this is his favorite piece. Now, if we know Russell, he's sent us everything from, God, I mean, please, Russell, in future, send us a full set of the watches that you have, because, I mean, he has, we've seen what? What's that Zeitwerk? The Zeitwerk Phantom. We've seen the Datograph Lumen. We've seen a 5370P. We've seen World Times. everything, enamel world times. So this Ulysses Nardin, what makes this special, it's one of 3 in the world. It's platinum. It's 38 mils. And it was made, it's 200 meters water resistant, can you believe? And it was made in tribute to a official marine chronometer from back in the day that was used as deck clocks all over the world, used by American armed forces, I'm sure, American navies, I'm pretty sure everywhere in the world, in France and the like. And this piece was really made to pay tribute to those original navigational clocks. It has, this looks like an enamel dial, blued hands, as we can imagine. It's just so clean and clear. I love it. I mean, that kind of story, just keep this in mind. It's 3 in the world, one of 3, platinum watch with 200 meters of water resistance. It's pretty hilarious, no? And we have a better look at the dial and the case. I mean, it's a great way to end the show. Just some, and what also, it seems to happen so much that repetition, it happens in pairs on every show, because we've already had a look at an original Hamilton navigator clock as it is. And now we're seeing one of, we could say, possibly the best. And if anyone's in the chat, if Zane or if Russell is in the chat, maybe highlight a bit more about this piece if you know some background. But as far as a marine chronometer goes, I don't think it gets much better than a 1 in 3 in the world. And it just keeps all those hallmarks. Again, he sent me this to be the reference image, because I'm pretty sure this is what was the true inspiration behind it. I don't know what this reference detail is about here. 5187 was maybe just a serial number, but I'm sure 1846 is commemorative for the anniversary of the brand itself. This might have been an anniversary for the brand. Again, the emails are so long half the time, I have to like cherry pick information, but it definitely does, just looking at the dial, it does look like enamel finished, blued hands. The symmetry is something else as well. You can see that back then they were understanding how a centralized centralized running seconds is important, an up-down, simple winding situation. And it was so important to keep marine chronometers wound, you know? That's one detail that's not spoken about often. These objects were used as not only keeping track of time zones as you were traveling, but they were so imperative for navigation back in the day. I mean, we're thinking to when these were around. It's incredible. Oh, so there we go. Zane says, yes, I think 150th anniversary, platinum 41, 38 enamel dial. Thank you, Russell, for that. Yeah, so that's the way we end the show. We always try and end on a high with a big piece. And Russell and Zane generally compete with the watches that they have. I would love to see at the end of the show one time for Russell to send in just a watch box of like 5 pieces that we can have a look at. 5 very distinct pieces. Just when I think Russell has shown us everything, Zane as well. You guys always manage to pull out something new, and it's pretty special. And the coin bezel, I was going to get to it as well. Thanks, listen to me. Gives you that Breguet aesthetic, you know. And the whole idea behind these coin-edged cases, they were essentially just pocket watches that were easier to grip back then. That was the idea behind coin edging, and that translated through. And Gary's saying lots of variety, for sure. I mean, that's what makes these shows great. We just see everything and anything. So for a change, I'm actually going to end the show around here. We've just past 3 hours, 3 hours and about 8 minutes at this point. Pretty amazing, no? It's great. I mean, these shows just, they run very dynamically because the variety is just always there, and it's what makes it so fun. So thank you everyone for joining. And Juan especially. I think Juan needs an applause from everyone in the audience, because his set of pieces that he shared with us, from all the Hamiltons to the 1815 Platinums, the Daytonas, everything, it was incredible. So as always, you're all fantastic for sending these to me. I couldn't do the show without you. Your contribution makes the show so varied, and we get to see what everyone wears and enjoys. Who would have thought that along with Pateks and Lungas and everything else, we will see a Ulysses Nardin, a 1 of 3 platinum piece, Russell's favorite watch, because it is just so rare. It's a proper museum watch. It's amazing. Yeah. And Ashley's saying, love the women's watches in the show. Yeah, for sure. I mean, wives, girlfriends, send some watches in together. It'll be amazing, because, again, we get to see just how watches fit on wrists and what appeals to people. And, yeah, it's always a joy. So everyone, I'm going to close this down for the evening. Get this little guy back up. Technically, it's morning, but yeah, it's 1 o'clock in the UK. But you're great. Thank you all so much for joining and being a part of the show. I hope you're keeping yourselves busy during this time. Come next week, Wednesday, I think I'll put the video out. It's a big one. It's like 19 minutes long, and it's on reissue dive watches. And it's like paging through a magazine. I had so much fun putting it together. I think you'll hear it in the enthusiasm as I talk through the watches. Just a varied selection of dive watches that have been reissued over the years from some top brands, everything from entry level to much higher horology. And we get to just enjoy the aesthetics of those time periods. And yeah, it should be a great time. So that'll be next week. Then we've got watch brands and car brands coming together. Yeah, it's going to be a joy. I'm spending a lot of this time now trying to put new ideas together and collating new subjects. It's always difficult to be original with ideas, but you try. So as always, thank you, Thomas, for the super chat, brother. As always, I hope you got my terrible email that I sent you today, I think. You guys are superb for doing this, for contributing, for being a part of the show. It's always a pleasure. And come next weekend, we could possibly do the same. I'm sure everyone is sick and tired of being locked in. Watches and motorbikes. Any plans for a non-viewer wrist shot live stream? Tom Austin. How would we do that? As in, we could like browse Reddit or something. That could be something in the future. I don't know. But yeah, all of you, thank you so much for joining. I'm going to call it quits here at 10 minutes past 3. Oh, sorry, 10 minutes past the 3rd hour. Pretty great. See you next weekend. Can make another arrangement and look forward to the videos coming out next week because they are pretty cool. So until then, cheers for now. Have a great Sunday, and I'll see you soon.